welcome to the stream. Welcome, and Simi Diaz. Welcome tonight. I hope you're doing awesome. Life is treating you well. And yes, thank you for the Nico knees. Thank you. Happy Friday, everyone. How's it going? I gotta do a thing. Gotta make sure things sound a little bit better than last stream. I'm still working on my sound. I'm still in my new studio, so I haven't got all my sound proofing up yet, so there's going to be a bit of an echo, but I'm excited tonight nonetheless because we will have a special guest tonight arriving probably in about 20-30 minutes, so I hope you guys are ready. So let's see, I'm testing my sound settings here and see what I sound like. Hold on. Waves, thank you. Thank you for waving. Yeah, you can hear me like really loud and clear. Okay. Okay. But yeah, how are you? I hope you're doing good. I'll turn this down just a little bit and then put on some ears. Got some sparkly new purple ones that were given to me. But yeah. I think they're pretty cool. But yeah, hopefully eventually I'll be able to get rid of this echo. But I'm just glad you can hear me. I'm not skipping out tonight. My voice was skipping out the other day and I was really upset. It took me only 2 hours to get it this good. Apparently my voice is extra difficult when it comes to tuning a mic. But it might be because I'm so soft-spoken and then sometimes I'm almost whispering. I don't know. There we go. I don't have to listen to myself anymore. Getting messages from my special guests. You want food? I'm like, I'm good. I'll grab food if you want. Let's see. So they might be a little bit longer than expected. But we're gonna roll some marbles today. Are you excited to roll some marbles? I noticed drops were enabled. So if you hadn't had a chance to get your coins, you can do that today. Let's go ahead and load up. Let's load up 5 courses. Why not? Let's let it autofill the 5. Let's find out what they're like, and let's hit play so people can go ahead and start joining in. Go ahead and join into the tracks. There we go. Exclamation play. And then I think that had it, yeah. And then you can get your marbles on the track, guys. Welcome in Simi Diaz. You're the first one today. Let's see my chair for my special guests. They're gonna join me. They can sit here. It'll be fun. It'll be a good time. I can't wait. Hopefully people are back from vacation and holidays and ready to join and play tonight. That's what I'm looking forward to. Nice, can't wait. Sorry, I've missed a few streams. Oh, no worries. I missed a lot of streams. I had to move twice since October 10th. And 2 days ago was my first stream in over 2 months because of hurricanes and a tree fell on my house. And a long story, I kind of moved twice. I'm finally getting settled, but I still have to finish setting up my studio. This is my new studio, so. But I'm doing good and I'm happy to be back. So that's probably why you missed streams. I wasn't streaming. That's the longest I've gone without streaming, is 2 months. I was like, wow, it's been a really long time. I was like, everybody's gonna forget about me. They're gonna forget I exist. So it'll probably take some time to get everybody acclimated back to when I go live. I'm gonna work on going live Fridays and Sundays, like I have traditionally for a while now. And that's my goal. Hi Matthew, welcome to the stream. Welcome to my studio, my new studio. It's a lot smaller than my other one, as you can see, a lot smaller, but that's okay. I'm gonna get it all soundproofed, and it's gonna be nice, and it's gonna be comfy, cozy, and awesome. But yeah, hi Matthew, exclamation play if you want to join us on the marbles track here, and poke catch if you want to catch Pokemon. There, we'll see if we can actually catch one. Let's see. Da-da-da. Dreamweaver! Okay, sweet! Exclamation play if you want to roll. Oh, that was a really quick month. You just subscribed 2 days ago. I love how that works. I love how the 30-day thing works with that. Welcome back, Shane. Welcome back. Once my special guest arrives, I will be live in my Discord tonight for my community, because we gotta have our Friday night community shenanigans. But I'm gonna wait for that. But Dreams, we can't wait for you to be on tonight. Exclamation play if you want to roll on the track, even though you're not gonna be here. Feel free to jump on. That way we have more than 3 of us. Yeah, thank you so much, Shane. Thank you. That was a really short month, right? Like 2 days. Because I was live 2 days ago. All right, let's try this one. Hug. Oh, apparently I'm hugging myself. That means double cookies. Let's see. I hugged bot. Triple cookies. Hugged myself. 4 times the cookies. Yeah! You get 4 times the cookies. Sweet. Or is it 5? Let's see. 1, 2, 3. It's 4. There we go. Cookies. Add in Semidias. 2,000 cookies. Because you won the hugs. But I'm excited for my special guest, Shane. I'm excited. They'll be here shortly. So I won't be alone tonight on stream. It'll be kind of fun. And I'm gonna go ahead and hit start since we've got 4 people in here. Thank you for joining, Dreams. Oh, they moved the start button. I was like, where's it at? I couldn't find it. Yeah. But yes. There it is. Let's go. I feel like we're like, I guess we're inside that board. And Semidias is first. Let's go. Was it because I paid for 2 months of subs, but you weren't live for me to announce it? So announce it. So present, move, and back. Usually I think it's because I think it's how the billing cycle works, honestly. I think it's because the billing cycle reschedules toward the end of the month. Because I've had it happen to me before too. I don't know though, 100%. I really don't know. Wow, where's Shane? It's okay, Shane. Words are hard. I understood what you were saying. I thought maybe I was just reading it wrong. I'm glad I'm not the only one. I often like skip through the words in a message and read it because I like hurry. And yeah. So I was like, maybe it's me. Wow, and 70 years, you're like miles ahead of everyone. Where are we at? I don't even know where we're at. There's two of us. Oh, look at you! Oh, is Shane gonna come in and steal it? Is he? No! You got it, you got it, you got it. Yay! You got it, you got it. Oh, now we gotta see Shane, and Dreams is way back there. Congrats, GG. GG? Alright, I gotta make sure I hear people when they... I gotta ask you, who's a special guest? And I was just like, hee hee hee. I didn't say who it was. I'm gonna message, who is it? I don't know. But they'll be right here in just a few. Let me see their status of their arrival. Let me look. Let me look. I could peek in and see where they're at. Mm-hmm. Oh, the countdown's on 10. No wonder it did it so fast earlier. Exclamation play, guys! Exclamation play to get your marble on the track! Exclamation play! Alright, they made it to town. I know where they're at. Yes, I will. After my special guest arrives, top secret special guest, then I will be in Discord and hanging out with everyone. So yes, you're more than welcome to go join the live channel and wait. You leveled up to level 1, Intimidious. Okay, here we go, guys. Here we go. Exclamation play, let's go. I gotta hear it. Hang out and see if I can hear my door. Why am I in the lead? Why? Why? And Semidius is in the lead now. Again. Or is it Dreams? It's actually Dreams. Oh, but what if he gets toasted? Those laser beams look serious. I think those laser beams are going to be a problem. Dun, 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 dun. Let's go! Let's see. Dun, 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 dun. So how was everyone's Christmas? I hope you had a wonderful Christmas. If you celebrate and had lots of yummy, yummy foods. Dreams fell off. No, Dreams, why did you fall off? It went well. I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad. Mine was quiet and peaceful and productive. We got things done. I spent the last 2 days finally having moving stuff into closets here and organizing my life. Let's see. It looks like Michigan's the only one still alive at the moment. You learned recently that you're gonna be an uncle? That's awesome. Congratulations. Congrats. Maybe. I mean, you're looking more hopeful than the rest of us. Let's just to say that, Michigan. Looking more hopeful than the rest of us. All right. Here we go. Next. Vast bouncing flight. Let's go. Exclamation play if you want on the track. Exclamation play. One with my eyes closed. Look at you. Magical indeed. All right. This is like 3 of 5 in the Grand Prix, guys. 3 of 5. I feel like Insimi Diaz is gonna be on the podium. Let's see. All right, 20 seconds. Yeah. Who will it be now? Why am I in the lead? Because cheat codes? Just saying. Alright, checking my map again. No! It's taking forever. Hurry up. They're in the drive-thru getting food. So they're at the mercy of the drive-thru at this moment. All right. Woo! And Simi Diaz. Killing it, man. Let's see. Dun, 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 dun. Come on, Shane. There we go. World record? And Simi Diaz, you just got a world record. That's not just me. That is out of all of Marbles on stream. Like, everybody playing this game. Everybody. You just got the fastest time. You beat everybody. Holy cow. That's worth some hype there. Also, catching Pokemon. Holy cow. Yeah, so screenshot that if you want to remember that. Look at you. We just gotta leave that up there just for a second and, you know, realize that did just happen. So, congrats. Congratulations on your world record. Dang. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Congratulations! Simply Abundant Abyss. So now that we're starting and breaking records tonight, that's awesome. Okay. Gonna hit start, and I gotta run and check on a thing, and I'll be right back. You guys don't go anywhere. I'm back. You guys took off without me. I told you don't go anywhere. Hi, buddy. Welcome. Hey, I caught the Pokemon too. Welcome to the race, buddy. Glad you made it. We had a world record broken just a few moments ago by Insimidius, the fastest time on the last map we just played. Yeah, that's out of everyone playing this game since that track was created. Hi, it's me, your special guest. I mean, come sit down. If you're my special guest, join me. Come sit in a chair. You would be more than welcome to be a special guest. I'm in the chair. Oh, you're invisible. My bad. Would you like some of my water? Here, drink some water. I have another special guest arriving, so they may sit on your lap. Just saying. The amazement on your lap. I died. I fell off. I fell off the track. That's vodka. I mean, you wouldn't know. It's clear. Totally could be. Congratulations, Bloody. Congrats, congrats. Oh, I hear dogs barking. Oh. They're no longer sharing their location. I wonder if that means they're here. Here we go, here we go. Broken Smash. It says Broken Smashing Shindig. Okay, Broken Smash and Shindig. Exclamation play if you want to join the race, guys. Exclamation play. Oh, that's nice. What are nice sound commands? I should set those up. I forgot I used to do that to help remind y'all to get in here. Let's see. I'll do that one real quick. I'm having to reset up my stream deck. All the things, all the stuff. There we go. I'm gonna hit the start button. Exclamation play if you're lurking and listening. Exclamation play to get your marble on the track. I'm so excited. Any second. No longer sharing location. No. Okay. Let me go see. Let me go see. Let me go see. The special guest is here, guys. Is here. Couple more seconds. Y'all ready? I'm trying to like get on this thing here. There we go. There we go. Also, this is the last leg of the Grand Prix, by the way, too. So, and Timmy Diaz already fell off. Let me go help them in. Let me go help them in. So, you ready? 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 They're getting prepared. guys, you ready? Okay. Shane, you're still alive. There's the finish line. You're still alive. Special guest, not sponsored by McDonald's. Or Baja Blast. But yeah, here's the final results of the Grand Prix. Let's see who gets it. Drum roll. It is Shane, third on the podium. Congrats. Dreamweaver is second. First place goes to Intimidate. Congratulations, man. Congrats. All right, here we go. We're gonna wait a couple more seconds. And I'll go ahead and start the next Grand Prix. 5 more races. Random. And you guys can go ahead and get on the track while we wait. But yeah. We're ready. Come on.
Are we sure we want to see me?
Yes. Hi guys.
Hello, friends.
Welcome, Lady Rain.
Hello.
If you haven't seen Lady Rain before, this is what Lady Rain looks like. Welcome to the stream.
Hello, friends.
But
Oh, we're playing,
she
aren't we?
is joining us tonight. Huh?
But we are playing, aren't we? Should probably get in there, huh? I can't lose my streak now.
God. Rain. Yeah. But yes, Rain is here. Also, you can put your marble on the track, exclamation play, and it'll put your marble on the track. Where is the... Oh, there they are.
Oh, there we are. Look at me.
I was like, I didn't think I put... Oh, I didn't hit enter. I was like, why am I not on there? I was like, jeez. But yeah, Rain is here to hang out.
Hello.
Play some marbles with us. And I'm gonna take chat off her face.
Fucking...
I'm gonna take chat off her face.
I just realized that Shane called me Ryan.
He corrected himself though.
He did.
He is having some words are hard moments tonight. It's his turn.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the wrong theme.
Okay.
Multi-chat, there it is. Okay, now you guys can see.
Yes.
And she has ears too.
I do. They're a little crooked though.
Yeah.
There
You wouldn't think after all these years autocorrect would learn, right? Right.
we go. I never learned. I did have to grab food on my way in though. Didn't think about it until after I got into town.
Alright, there they go. I'm gonna put in the light pink one.
We're changing them out right now?
No, you got ones that match
Oh.
if you choose.
You know.
We just didn't do that yet, so.
Jesus.
Because you're eating, so.
Yeah, we don't want to get crumbs on those.
Yeah, that's alright. I just threw in the washer today. So they're clean for the moment. So that's okay. Let's see. Desi, welcome to the stream, by the way.
Jesse.
This is, for you guys who haven't seen Lady Rain before, this is Lady Rain. She is one of my mods, and she's also my special guest today. So. Now you know. She streams once in a while.
God,
How long's
it's
it
been,
been?
A year?
Yeah, probably.
Over a year now? Because I think the...
Who? Ryan. It's Ryan.
Gee, thanks. Yeah, totally Ryan. I don't know who that is.
Yeah. Desi is like bouncing up and down right now. I didn't know there was like trampoline thingamajiggies on this one.
We're just bouncing around. I'm in last place. Oh no, I'm in first. Okay.
Oh no. Here you go. Okay, if you want sound as well, you can use the other ear.
Oh jeez. Is
So
that the left or right?
it'll be your left.
Okay.
Because I only ever use one ear.
It's fair.
Because I'm a weirdo. Not that it's that great, but if there's a notification, you'll hear it. Oh, catch.
There's an adjustment to figure that out.
Yeah, it loops over the top and just kind of floats there, and then hides behind my hair.
I never really
Don't call her Ryan. Michigan, you're gonna get in trouble. You are gonna be in so much trouble. There.
Let's see if I can get in on this catch before it disappears.
Oh, catch. Are you gonna make it?
Just barely. I need a little full bat.
Gotta keep up with all my things and stuff here.
Mm-hmm. This bitch. How rude.
I don't know who got first place. I know nothing.
Rigged.
I know nothing. Now we're waiting on Michigan. Where is he at? Oh, this is Tank. Where's Tank? He would like that. Alright. Next race. You know the steps, you know the procedures. I need to add exclamation play to my thing.
I hope you know, you put me where the controls are.
No. That's dangerous. And maybe like, wait. Exclamation play to join the race. Exclamation play. Oh. What's that?
The wrong thing.
I know. Alright. And cheat 5. I don't know. Desi 5? Oh. Desi? Desi's cheating with 5, I guess? I don't know. This track is like interesting looking though. Are those like fucking sharks around the way? It's like one of those kids rides. Except for you all climb in the mouth to go for the ride apparently. I don't know how I feel about that. That's rules.
Yeah. Oh Jesus.
I'm not repeat that.
Yes.
Anyway, it's Orion.
Is that cut fruit?
Yes.
Dick. Rude.
I didn't see you sneak that photo. She likes sneaking evil photos of me.
That's what I'm for.
They're all not always beautiful either.
I don't take flattering photos.
I don't take photogenic photos unless I take them because I know what to do and not to do for my own personal appearance. Rain likes taking them of my profile, and then I got like my flat face going on.
I do the same thing to Dalton.
He's like, what the hell? All right, Michigan, you're in the lead. Tell us what's going on here. It looks like you're flying a little close to the sun. There's a lot of portals.
There are a lot of portals.
This is a pretty map, though. I mean, look at this. That's crazy. I may spend a lot of time on this. I'm guessing somebody could be in a different column, though, each person.
Yeah, there's so many of them.
Yeah.
I think that's how Desi ended up being ahead of us, I feel like.
Yep. Look at Desi. He's making his way to the finish line, and I think, win. Oh, yeah, that's a cool angle. See everybody. And see the map.
And gradually changes color, too.
That's a gorgeous map. Fantastic alien marble. Dawn did a good job. Beautiful map.
Very colorful.
Firestorm, Trippy. Hello. Welcome, Firestorm. She saw your comment.
Oh.
Just saying.
I was paying for a chill night, dude.
Yep.
It's fucking scary getting here this late.
Yeah, I'm surprised you drove at dark. You were determined to get here.
I was.
Because you're like, I'm never driving that way at dark again, ever. And the first thing, I'm coming that night. I'm like, are you sure? Last time you were like, I'm not driving in the dark. We're
It
playing
took me a
marbles.
different way, though. Instead of my normal route that I took a different way. I took around rather than
Okay. Probably put on traffic and stuff. We're playing trippy looking marbles as Rain eats french fries.
Yep.
And she finished her nuggets. So she did good.
That's what I really wanted. This is the nuggets.
Yeah, after you asked if I wanted food, I was like, I wonder where she's going. I might change my mind. They're just like, I was thinking about this caramel apple empanadas they have at Taco Bell. They're back. They're so good.
Are they really?
Yeah.
I haven't had them yet. I passed Crystals on the way here. I'm like, shit, I could stop there. But I'm like, yeah, maybe we'll go there tomorrow. We'll see.
Shane's already won. Already in the basket. Look at that.
Hey, I made it in. I'm in second place. Heck yes.
My cheat codes are not working. I paid the wrong guy. You're supposed to pay me.
Or me.
Yeah, one of us. That's the problem. I don't know who you're playing. Just kidding. Snake! Thank you so much for the sub. Thank you for the 21 months. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for the hype, Michigan. All right, next leg. We have Holy Classy. I missed it. Words are hard. Holy Classy Adventure. What's a Holy Classy Adventure?
This almost looks like it's golf.
Oh, it is. It is green, like a green. I forgot I made little commands for myself. I should change that to my skin too. Now that I can do that. Just keep it open so I can play on the fly. Oh, I gotta hit the start button.
You should probably put it in the other box, not the title box.
What box?
Back to your stream deck.
What?
You put it in the title, not the message.
Oh. I know nothing.
Hey.
I'd be like, why isn't this working? You're like, cause things, stuff, blonde moments. It's like, what is she talking about? All right, racers, are you ready? You worked it? Yeah, I did.
She would have.
Yeah, I was trying to make it where I had 7, but I put it in the title instead of the Stream Deck. I put it in the Stream Deck title instead of the actual command for chat title, if that makes sense. I'm programming my Stream Deck on the fly here.
You have to oh yeah, you had to reset it all, huh? Because you couldn't export it.
I don't know if I can or not. Alright, yeah. So for now, it's just, I've just been redoing it. Welcome.
Long time no see.
Stranger danger. Oh, that's right. They were wondering if we were going to join and hang out tonight. So I told them after you got here. So I'm sure they're all anticipating. Like, oh, Michigan's there anticipating.
Yeah. I think the rest of them.
All right. If you have access to my cat live, feel free to join. We are going in there now.
Hello.
Hi. I will not be able to share my camera here though, because my camera doesn't work that way anymore. Sadly.
You hear him over the music. That's
Yeah. There, we'll turn it up. Probably turn down a little bit. There we go. Now I can actually hear humans.
Hello there.
oh, hello.
Welcome.
Are you live?
Yeah.
Or-
Yes,
Yes.
we are
We
live.
are both live.
I'm alive
Kind of.
today, but I don't know about them.
You don't know about
Well,
tomorrow.
you're next to each other.
We are next to each other.
No, they have split screen.
Yeah.
It's a new
Thanks.
feature.
After I'm done with my noms, I can come say hi, sweet.
Yeah.
Right, Crowley. Love, 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 love.
Yeah, they're
Join
playing
us.
Marvel.
Oh, I just died. I wasn't
Oh,
delayed, but I
I'm
died.
pretty sure I
You
got
died
first.
too. It's because we weren't paying attention. We weren't
Exactly what
focused
happened.
on the track, so we just like fell off. This does look like golf.
Wow.
Ooh.
Mary Ho.
Thank you, Wiggles! Holy cow, thank you for the 11 months, Wiggles! Wow, already? What's up? Did you get the 2-day thing like Shane did? Like it made you do it again because it did 2 days ago?
Yeah, mine didn't. Mine made me do it twice.
Yeah.
I think
I think it's how the month falls or something.
Yeah. It's like I think. No, I don't remember when my.
Go, Dreams, go!
I'm trying.
Dreams.
I'm trying.
Oh, hello.
Oh yeah, he joined too. Yeah.
See, I'm used to hearing everyone join because I'm not live when I'm.
Yeah,
joining you guys.
I don't have any warning that people join other than I would hear them speak
Yeah, their noise.
unless I'm visually looking, which is hard to look at everything. I need one more monitor, but I don't really have room
How
for it.
about
So I'm not gonna
we
do that.
swap? I take your 2 monitors. I just give you my curved one. 'Cause I fucking hate it.
I don't want a curved one. I never wanted a curved one.
No, I fucking hate it.
You tried it though.
It's one of the widescreen and it's free, so I think I can't complain that much.
No, I probably end up just like bringing my tablet in here or something one day and joining Discord that way. That way I
Yeah.
could see, or just chat that way or something. I don't know.
Yeah, especially if you don't want to. You don't have to stream the Discord chat that way either.
Mm-mm. Yo. Come on, Dreams.
How long is this course?
Apparently, it's really long.
Forever.
Anyways, James.
You're
James,
almost
I'm
there,
coming.
though.
I'm coming for that booty, James.
What does the 540 stand for? Is that like a golf term that I'm not familiar with?
I have no idea. Maybe.
James, you cheated. You pushed me.
Does that mean Timbuktu? What does 540 mean?
Dude, you pushed me off the course.
Maybe something like it's
Wow,
40 yards or something kind of that. I don't know.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah, that's a
interesting.
crazy long course.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a while since I've done one of those.
Come on, Shade. Come on, Firestorm.
Finally, I won.
All right, I'm gonna move that for a second, just so I can make people a little bigger, but not too big. I can't see
Yeah,
my
you really need a
notifications.
third monitor. I was spoiled.
Yeah.
I like thrived on 3 monitors.
Now you know how I do things, and then I
Mhm.
just like I'll usually leave just enough to see like my notifications, and then just enough to see that my signal's still strong.
Right.
And then try to get as many people in here as possible and still see chat.
See, I always did it where I didn't see the video. I just covered the stream preview of the
Yeah.
video and
Well,
just had Discord.
Well,
or
now
whatever
some
I
of
had
the commands they don't show up in Discord; they only show up live. So I have to be watching to see it.
interesting. That's silly.
So that's like when they do the enlarged emote thing. I have to visually see it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, that thing that Wiggles does.
Mm-hmm.
Gigantify an emote. And then actually then I don't know if it's capturing it there either. It might actually be on stream. Next.
Abstract absurd abyss. What? Oh jeez.
Yep. I think we may have did this one earlier. Maybe. It's a short one, kind of. I don't know what that says though. I think that was supposed to be letters. BH1? I don't know. Exclamation play to get your marble on the track, guys. Exclamation play. And then I put in the roar somewhere. Oh, that was too late.
Oh damn, that was fun. No wonder you freaked out.
She got for the roar up close and personal. She's her eyes kind of big.
I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah. It wakes everybody up. It wakes me up.
Oh, fucking 7-Eleven didn't have any energy drinks. At least not what I
Oh.
wanted.
Go check my fridge. In the door.
Oh, jeez.
It's in the door part. All right, Michigan, you have the lead for the moment.
A moment.
What I'm fucking looking for.
I wish they would have had the caramel apple one, so I would have, you know.
It's so hard to find them. The only place I was able to find them was Target.
Well, that, and I think they're only,
They're usually seasonal only.
yeah. But yeah, this is exactly why I came here, Michigan. But that's also why I leave like one ear uncovered so that I can hear the world. Now I want one.
Do I need to go grab the other one?
Trying to think which one I want.
Oh.
Then I grab the Stardust one.
See, what did that do? Oh wow. That was cool. Looking at shooting red blocks.
Oh, that's okay. Who won the last one?
What does it say? Bert? Or burn?
Oh, it's Bronco Mama.
Oh, okay.
I was like, what?
I was like, what does it say?
I do need to get
You leveled up, buddy. Michigan redeemed cat ears. Okay, which ones? Cheetah. Okay, cheetah cat ears. There. I gotta find my basket. Rain, watermelon.
You have to go to the store for it, though. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll go with my
Unless you wanted
watermelon sparkling water.
She wanted a watermelon.
No, watermelon Celsius to go with my watermelon sparkling water.
Well, I want a watermelon.
Thank you so much, Wiggles, for gifting bloody a sub. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Beat me to the hype because
You get to hear Paimon over and over
I
again.
do. Not any different than watching stream anyway.
5 seconds, guys.
But I guess I do typically have stream muted when I'm in Discord chat.
Yeah.
Oh, am I in this one?
Are you?
Did you?
I
Don't
don't think so. I think you missed it.
He's a Packer
I don't
fan.
see
he's
it
a
play.
little, you know, he's a little slower. It's fine.
Rain's trying to keep me up all night, by the way.
Even though,
If I'm staying up all night, you are too.
well, party hard, and then regrets are for tomorrow's problem.
I did almost stop at the liquor store since it was right there next to McDonald's. Like, should I? Should
Well,
I
you should've
not?
got-
I'm like, nah.
I mean, I still
You
got
should've
apple
got
pie
it.
moonshine and
True.
peppermint moonshine.
Do
Yeah,
it.
because we definitely need to drink both of them before I leave on Sunday.
Yeah. Buddy was trying to get me to do shots tonight. I was like, no, I'll be 2 shots in, I'd be done.
We'll have to be carried. Come on home.
Dude.
You? No, it's gonna be me. It's like, I could definitely outdrink Mono.
I can outdrink you, so I'll be carrying both of you guys.
You probably can.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not a lightweight, but
We're not professionals.
I'm not a professional. I'm just.
It's 9 o'clock.
Yeah, it's bedtime. It's time to end
It's
and go to
bedtime,
bed.
guys.
Good night.
It
No.
was a good stream, guys, and I'll catch you guys on the flip side.
Emotional, thanks for joining.
Yeah. We have a very strict policy.
Right? I don't think apple pie and watermelon go together. My stickers.
I see that.
You found them.
I did.
You found my stash. She found all my
She's going
stickers,
all over the
guys.
place,
We're
like, what's this? What's this? What's this?
I think
She's looking through my drawers,
I
guys.
am. All the
It's like,
drawers.
what's this? What's this key for? What's that?
I have no shame.
It's right in front of her. She can help herself.
I know it's a joke.
Fine. I mean, we're gonna share a bed anyway.
Let's see. Ooh. It's alright. Bloody's meowing at us.
I see that.
Meow, meow.
Music's
Hey.
great.
What did you say?
I said this music's great. I forget how good Stream
Oh, yeah, I
Beats
needed
is.
that fucking here, so I was like, what? This-
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't usually hear the music side of things. 'Cause
Mm-mm.
It's usually quiet on stream anyway.
Yeah, you kind of have to in Discord. Yeah, you know that.
I get tired of hearing like the marbles music, and some of the maps don't really have music.
Hey,
So.
look at me, I won. Rigged.
Well, I can start rhyming, but it wouldn't make.
So I've got the sound effects on, but not the thing. Oh, we're at the Grand Prix, guys.
Oh.
Y'all ready? What do you think's on the podium?
Not me.
Not me.
I only won once.
Not it.
Not it.
I'd be surprised if I was.
Drum roll.
I'm gonna say dreams just because.
Can you do
I
it?
have,
No,
I have
I
dreams.
cannot do that.
You can't roll your tongue.
No. I barely passed Spanish because I couldn't roll my tongue.
I barely pass English.
Here we go. Destiny is on the podium with third
Yes.
place. All right, second place goes to Lady Rain with lots of
Marbles.
marbles.
First, I hope.
She's
just
on
because,
fire. The girl's on
I
fire.
guess.
And Shane
Did I
at the
stop?
top of the
Damn it.
podium.
No, not damn it.
Congratulations,
Shane.
Shane.
Rigged. Absolutely rigged.
GG, GG. Definitely
Yes.
rigged. GG.
He is the mod cheat code that I gave him. Even though I'm not a mod. I don't know how that works.
Do.
Good effort.
Me?
It was just
Oh my
sheer willpower that happened.
You can
Yeah,
usually do
that's-
it as soon as that intro screen starts before it even gets to the actual screen. You can like be preemptive.
Really?
Mm-hmm. All right, guys, play.
I get it, Kamala. You're playing because it says play. So the more you say,
Oh, oh.
We're gonna make. See how many
Oh,
times we
did
can
it-
make Lady Range up tonight.
Did it scream already? I don't think it did my scream.
I don't think it did either.
Sorry.
There you
Okay, now we got your screen. Now you know what it's
go. I had to
like.
manually do it, but now we got it.
At least it's working.
It's like I didn't think I heard it when I entered. But I don't think I had my ear in. I didn't have ears yet.
Oh,
Yeah, my ears are chargeable.
and then
You can have fun with that.
What do you put in that? Oh, sorry.
Is that a fucking
Just-
cooking mitten?
Just for context, she put some in front of me too. But I'm not
Yeah.
wearing these.
I tried. I tried. It would have been so cute. Yeah, we
Match the Ninja
You're gonna
Turtles.
try to box us?
just gonna say meow meow meow.
I'm afraid now. I'm gonna get punched.
Nope.
Yeah, we'll fight. Cat fight.
Fight you.
Well, right there is technically.
Go on back,
cat
we'll fight.
box.
I tried. Let's see.
Sounds like it looks like something you'd buy something that's for someone who's like a heavy typer, and they're like just fucking going at it, just chomping on the keys.
No, it looks like
Oh,
you.
like they're
Right?
No, it looks like you
Riot
bought half a
Tremaine's
glove
paws.
because you couldn't afford a full glove.
Rainbows. No.
Yes.
I didn't realize my camera was off.
No, I wanted
The camera's
it off.
Yeah, not anymore.
Riot! I forgot that's a command.
You can't have hers on here because
Let's see.
you don't have
So you
whatever.
put up the Zelda light in the background there.
I did. And I think it's actually backwards for you guys. Right?
It could be. It's the same. I'm s-
That's a Z. This makes it really hard to type, though, by the way. These gloves do.
like I said, it looks like you have like discount gloves where you only like bought half the glove.
I don't. You guys have never really seen me wear them, but I do have a couple pairs of arthritis
No.
gloves because I am apparently
No,
an
I've
old
seen
lady.
a couple that you've done yet.
Mm-hmm. Well, you usually, I think when I'm on my laptop, you usually see me wear my drawing glove, which I have in my bag. But...
My job's a wee bit dangerous, and I've got these gloves that I've just got like the middle finger, the first finger, and the thumb taken off it, and it just looks like I have a fucking glove. Like I forgot to take the two fingers off.
There. And we can see them again. Win again! No! Lick her!
Nope.
Her, not me.
No, thank you.
Why am I always so far behind?
Cause fuck you.
Here, you can have a paw. That's it.
You have a
Oh, Wiggles has the face now. Hello.
Yes.
Yes, he has a face.
He
think he
does
does. You have a
exist.
face? I didn't know he had a face.
He's alive.
Wiggles is already in the basket. Wiggles already won.
Yeah, because he cheats.
Oh,
I feel lost without one of the cats.
He's
Oh.
Should've brought
so
one of the cats with me.
crazy.
We need puddles.
Puddles.
He'd be
I want
like,
to see animals. Wait a minute, I got one.
I know.
Let
I'm
me
so
go.
used to being like on Discord
I
with
know.
you guys and having one of the cats or the dog around.
No,
and
no,
I got none of them.
It makes you very not. I'm not saying depressed, but like
We're used to hearing-
always,
Depressed. They're okay.
I
Lay
always
lay
sleep.
down, lay down.
I always sleep with my cat. Well, I
Literally,
always sleep
the
with my
amount
cat.
of times
so
I
when
had to
went
mute myself because I'm yelling at the dog.
That's all
When
I
I
hear.
went to
Lay
Spencer's
down.
house, I'm so used to sleeping with my cat. I was like, I need
Fire!
my cat in here.
GG, congratulations. Yeah.
just cuddling up to the pillow.
Alright. Da, 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 da.
You see the kitty?
I wonder who made those.
I was gonna say, wait a minute.
I stole them from your house. No, you mailed them to
I
me.
did. That was forever
I
ago.
know. They fit perfect in there.
That was at least 3 years ago because I was still living at my mom's.
I mean, I kept them.
I forgot I even sent them to you.
I kept them. What can I say? Looking at these little envelope things that Rain made me.
Yeah.
If you're curious,
I made so many of those.
they're little envelopes and they're little.
I think I still have some up at my mom's place.
She made custom ones for me. Oh yeah, poke catch
Yeah,
guys
Mom,
too.
I know.
I do.
Little envelopes. She made all these by hand. She folded them up.
I did.
And I
My mom
don't
had all
know.
this
I don't
organized.
know if they're too small to mail. I figured they probably are. So I'd have to put them in an envelope inside of an envelope. So I
Yeah.
haven't mailed them. Because the idea was for me to put stickers in them and give them out. But they're just so cute. I haven't done anything with them.
Completely forgot they existed. What is this?
Then oh, poke catch.
Yeah, those are pen refills.
Poke catch. And these are paint markers. Yep. And then there's a little bookmarks. Like kind of like the sticky note bookmark thingies. She's looking at all my stuff, guys.
Yeah, well, I
Send
got
help.
Like I said,
markers.
look at this drawer.
Send
look at
help.
that drawer.
I mean, I could go into her room
Amy,
and go rummage
Do
around.
you need
Go into
Pikachu?
her room. Just go sleep in her room.
Guys,
Like
I
she
gotta
said.
go. There's a cat in my stuff. I'm gonna go. Thank you for the hive wiggles.
I
Thank you,
have
thank you,
no
thank you,
shame in
thank you.
going through her shit. I'm pretty sure she knows it.
Well, at this point, everybody's been through my shit. Just saying,
It's fair.
everybody, because of hurricanes and crap. So
Mhm.
everybody knows everything I own at this point. Like, it's like, oh yeah, so yeah. My landlord has seen all my belongings, all of them.
That's true. I've seen quite a few because you're back in the little area
Yeah, when
for
I
a
was-
while.
At the other side of the house, the other unit side.
Well, I helped
Big.
Wiggles move.
Does
and
it work?
I-
Actually, could you see it?
On-screen celebration. I think it works on Twitch.
Oh yeah.
I
Pretty
see it. But that's
So if I go to this one, oh, Twitch, oh, and then put you guys right there, then I should be able to see it.
Oh yeah.
yeah, the Doritos are already gone.
Doritos!
Yeah,
I
there's
saw it.
definitely some that are
It
strictly.
doesn't matter if I just
Laffy has been caught. I caught Laffy, by the way.
I did not get in on this one,
How
goddammit.
the fuck?
Wiggles, you have to be in the game. Yeah, in the game.
Did the game.
Get in the game.
Hey, I don't know if you guys can see this, but
What?
my new
What is it?
it's my-
Oh, nice.
it's my
Your daughter's high school? Oh, school?
Yeah.
Nice.
Aw.
Nobody say it out loud.
I like the stripes across the shoulders, down the arms.
I put it
I
on.
like
My
that.
wife said we went to the grocery store today and we went and saw the Christmas lights and stuff. And as we're walking out, she's like, "You look like a coach."
Hi, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Honestly, I would be like, yes, sir. What play do you want me to do? I'm doing it.
Welcome, Vix.
Do a double flip.
Vixen Visuals. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Yeah, you
Get
do
your
it.
booty in here.
Extra dog?
Maybe.
What is this shit? What is this? Hello? Hello? I'm in a different place.
Yep. Stranger
Just-
danger.
Yeah.
Ryan.
Hello.
No, it's not Ryan.
I'm holding Ryan hostage.
Not
Just
Ryan.
kidding.
If anyone knows,
This
I
is
do
my
have a
first time
tattoo
here.
and it matches with Vix.
Yes, they have matching tattoos. We just
Oh.
have both have cat
me and
ears.
Jake
That's it.
have matching tattoos, but it's we can't show
One of
you.
these days I'll get you a
Yeah,
tattoo.
we can't show you.
Oh,
It would be that one.
Yeah.
Yep.
yeah.
Does get bigger, it says, and
See?
Yeah, we can't show them because it would be
No,
too
no.
PG.
We're not calling me Ryan.
Ryan.
Yeah, mine. Never
You know what's
mind.
about to happen, right? You're gonna have to put in a password.
Ryan.
Password
Oh,
one, two,
yeah.
Uh-huh.
1, 2, 3.
Right.
I know
Oh,
all
let's-
the passwords. Password 1, 2, 3.
Password is 1, 2, 3,
It's Rain.
4,
No,
5,
I'm not.
6.
Rain.
Yeah.
Don't cry. See, I got to see you in person, Vix, and now I get to see Mono in person. Except I get to see Mono in person more than I get to see you.
Get in there. Let's see if that works. Yeah, I typed it right. Sweet. We're good.
I have to actually moderate.
She's now stealing my internet, so
I am.
you know, if the stream crashes, I blame her. Just kidding. Congratulations, Desi! Jay! Welcome to the stream,
From
Jay!
here.
We are on leg 3 of this Grand Prix. Happy cozy dreams.
It's so much more difficult to moderate from here, though.
Happy cozy dreams. I just got splashed in the face by my own drink.
I do that.
Paws come in handy. Can just like wipe it off.
And I'm not wearing the paws. Don't start thinking that you can get me to do it. It's not happening. Oh god.
Shocking. Hello. Welcome, Raiders. Welcome to the stream. Exclamation play if you want to join the race. Do it. Do it. Vix wants you to wear the paws.
No.
She thought about it though. I told her, look. So we just gotta get a couple shots in her and then she probably will.
Maybe.
But hi, welcome everyone in.
Love you too,
This is my wonderful mod, Lady
Hello.
Rain, visiting me today.
And as I moderate also.
Yep, multitasking is overrated. So, all right, we're gonna put the pink ones on now that match the
I'm sorry,
ball.
you're gonna end up with so much of my hair. I keep shedding.
I mean, cats shed. It's a thing.
True. I swear I shed more than a cat does.
Multitask for the win, right? 12 seconds, guys.
Oh god.
I don't think you made it. I think you have to get in before the 10. Oh, you did make it. It's you.
I did it.
It's you. Welcome, Jay. Jay made it too. All right. Why am I always first out of the thing? Let's go. What is with that? Is it making music? Pink glowy thing?
Maybe, I don't know. I don't play this nearly as much as you do. I usually play on the other side. I don't see any of
Oh.
this.
We're still on Big Me.
I mean, I can still see it. It's fine.
I know, that's why I
I'm
purposely
recording.
put the little tiny screen there.
Mhm.
It's helpful at
Right.
times.
You get to see the shit that I've been working on.
Yeah. Look at them all jumping into the funnel thingy.
Not me working on some fucking fan art. Not that sweet.
Well, I'm going to go into lurk mode for now to continue this PNG tour model thingy, but I'm here. Just call my name if you need me. Hello?
I'm doing all the things here.
Vix, we need you. Where are you? Come back.
Don't like fix it and do anything like I can. That's not what I wanted to pull up.
Right? Oh, look at Zimmy Diaz is gonna steal the lead again. Alright, if I can get off that thing. There's a heart. It's a heart. A heart, heart.
Fix and ghost, please.
Huh?
Fix.
Speaks in ghost voice. Oh, that's right. Bio said he was the special guest and he was already here and he was sitting in the chair, but he was invisible. And I told him, that's all right. You're going to have somebody sitting on your lap later. So now you were sitting on Bio's lap. And
And he's not even here to
No,
defend himself.
he's not. He has not said a word about you sitting on his lap.
Nope, not one bit.
My bad. I keep stealing it. It's all good. Kinky, right?
Vix, you know it's not the worst thing.
That reminds me, Mono. There seems to be a trend on YouTube right now of VTubers doing reaction videos. You should try that sometime. It sounds like fun.
That'd be a whole lot of fun for you.
I know. I just don't have time to set up a VTuber model. I don't know. I tried it a couple times and then I got frustrated and then I didn't go back to it.
Well, you do happen to know someone who does art stuff that's not me.
Do I know?
Yeah, that would be Vix.
You said holler if we need help, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's what they meant. It's way easier, lol.
Yeah, the PNG so yeah, the 2D. Yeah.
Did I win? Did I win? I did not win.
No, and Diaz got it again. GG. Followed by
I
Rain.
was actually thinking about Vix last night because I was
Jay,
sitting here trying to do
Wiggles.
this fucking drawing shit, and I cannot draw people
Come on,
for
Shane. There he goes.
worse shit.
Shane made it.
It's like maybe I could just make Vix draw my fan art.
What
for
you
me.
need? A cat girl.
So how does it feel back to streaming here?
It feels good. It feels good. Especially now that it feels good, yeah. The first day was a little rough. My sound was really, really bad. It kept cutting in and out. Today, I just have echoes because I haven't had a chance to soundproof everything, like throw in some carpets, throw some, padding on the wall, things like that. So, but echoes are okay. At least you can hear me and I'm not cutting out, so. Improvement. Haha, it haunts your mind. Girl, same. I'm doing an art study on it. Ooh, I want to do fan art. Nice.
I have to make my new character, and then I can send you what my character looks like, and then I can make you do my fan art for me.
Yeah, reaction
Pretty
videos
good.
are cool. I just have to have videos to react to.
Yeah.
And planning all that out without seeing them is kind of hard to do it all on your own. You have to have like people that send you videos and say, okay, I want you to react to these, and then set it up in a way that I can organize it for recording purposes.
Oh, no, don't you? No, what are you doing?
Computer going to sleep?
Shouldn't be. It's doing some weird ass shit though. I was trying to pull up.
I was like, why can't I click on that? It's 'cause it's not this one. There you go. There. Oh, if you want to see the name of it. We're covering up all the balls, you know that, right? Just like, there.
Just me. All right. Come
Or
on.
the question
I
mark.
was trying to find. There, that's what it.
Ah,
I was trying to show you some of.
kind of
Vix's
depends on
stuff.
what kind of audience you want to reach. And I'm chronically on YouTube, so I can always come up with suggestions. Ryan is streaming. Yes.
Definitely me.
Yeah, right, it's
Absolutely.
I'll send you guys images on Discord of what I'm working on. Sweet.
This is some of her shit that she has. Look at that. Look at her beautiful face.
Oh, pretty.
I know. Where the fuck is the site?
Yes,
Here.
join.
I'm showing Mono some of your fancy merch.
Yes. There we go. I'll just like block all of
I
you
just
here.
haven't ordered any yet.
Oh.
But it's some pretty cool shit.
I don't know where to put this. We're just gonna cover the walls.
Artwork. Look at this shit.
That's pretty.
Mm-hmm. It's all hers. It's all her artwork. Fucking love.
Yeah, we're looking at your stuff.
Yeah.
Cool. Welcome. Feel free to
Yeah,
join Discord and hang out, man.
Yeah, Thor.
Hola.
Thor.
It's very much. I feel like that's something you definitely wear.
Let it play. Oh,
You
That's
definitely
cute.
wear that. Oh no!
Oh, no, that one
that
will
one's
win.
it. That one's the one.
anything with cats is super cute, Kwai. I'm Kwai cute stuff.
Mhm. I think Vix does a really good job of combining cute and creepy
See, I get scared with creepy. That's her.
Mm,
I get scared.
We're yin and yang.
yep.
Definitely yin and yang. So, you know, white hair, black hair.
Like, I got the dark hair, you got
Yeah.
the white hair.
Yeah.
It works out.
It goes with the personalities.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, I have black hair. What does that mean?
It
I'm the devil.
It was near
What's up, homie?
black when I was a
Thor? How you
kid.
doing, Thor?
Lined up.
Hi,
Oh,
Thor,
hello,
welcome.
boy.
Oh, hello.
Oh, geez, how did I win again? Sorry, guys. It's rigged.
I know how you
Telling
win.
you, it's rigged.
Lady, can you see the cheat codes that she's using on the side?
I cannot.
Right.
She's hiding them from me.
It's
Is it in
rigged.
that drawer that you can't open?
Yeah, definitely, because there's no drawers underneath here.
Nope.
Obviously.
Also, your glorified paperweights in my way.
I know. It needs to move.
It's okay.
I need to turn through.
Just don't kick the glass down.
No, you don't want me to kick the glass out?
No.
It's a smash.
We're trying not to kick over the old computer.
Why are you doing that?
Just
Yeah.
wrestle it.
Yeah, it's under this desk because I have to share monitors to wipe it and stuff.
No, did it close that out? Please tell me I saved that before.
How dare you think?
Yes, please, thank God.
Play, 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 play.
Did I play?
I can close it. Yeah, my laptop apparently wants to update.
Jay Slider got burnt. How's the little ones, Jay? How they kicking?
There you
I
go.
need the babies.
Giggles. I had to give you a good
Oof,
old kiss.
bad timing,
Mhm.
computer. Yeah.
It completely closed out my artwork that I was working on too.
Oh, jeez.
Thankfully, I was able to restore it. I actually finally spent the $25 on getting Sketchbook Pro. I've been debating for it for a while. I just hadn't gotten it. But I was tired of not being able to, like, update it, so.
Who's gonna? It looks like Shane's in the lead.
Cheating. Absolutely cheating.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Hacks.
Likes it,
Somebody do.
Hacks.
×2 power.
How
Wait,
rude.
Volbeat is actually a Pokemon?
Yes, it is. It's a
thought
bug
you caught,
Pokemon.
like,
Yeah.
I thought you
Volbeat, yes.
got the band.
Yeah, I thought it was a
How you like
Yeah.
it? Clip Paint Studio is what Vix uses. I think that's what I have too.
Is that? I mean, I was using Sketchbook for a while because it's what you started using or were using for a while, Vix. And I was using the free version because it was free at the time. But now I can actually get updates and
I
do
died.
different color swatches and stuff. And now I can actually have like separate like little palettes. I like it a lot. Plus, I know how to use
Died.
it, so learning another software I don't want to do.
Aw. Gross.
Bro, I like them. But,
I mean, you are a cat.
well,
Oh, meow.
Let's see what Shane's doing. That's a rusty pipe for sure.
Got him out for dinner and all, and it's like, no.
Oh, bye, Shane.
Yep. And Thor is winning. Look
I
at
fell
that.
off a while ago.
I don't know where he went though. He warped up here to the ring. Oh, yeah. This is the one that has that weird finish line thingy.
I wanted to say something. I'm not. Good job ripping it. Well,
Where I
I
can
had
like
something
make sure me and Rain aren't covering up everything.
You don't want to cover up everything?
Our big heads. I made us too big.
That's alright.
I don't know.
That's why we were
It
making
was good
mistaken
sure.
for sisters, right?
Understandable. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, how many times I gotta go around?
You made
Many
it.
times as you want.
You made it! Oh!
We don't judge here.
Oh,
in the
bye, Thor.
Kimono team.
Michigan's turn.
Yep. Thor still won though.
Yeah, because he went through the little finish line thing and then he hit the
Oh.
TNT and went flying. GG.
Oh, gotcha.
He's got hacks, that's why. Oh,
Yeah,
Grand Prix time.
I ran Mono's program because she didn't want Rain to see it.
Oh, yep. Someone's got to run it so I
Alright.
can see it.
So Rain, you gotta do the drum roll.
Nope. Nope, can't do that. I told you I barely passed Spanish because I couldn't do that.
Like I said, I
Second
can't do
place
English.
goes to Wiggles. Congratulations, Wiggles.
Third place.
Yeah.
I'm not even on it, so.
Second place goes to Insimi Diaz on the podium once again. Congrats. And first place with the KimonoKat marble using hacks is Desi.
I totally thought it was you for a second. I'm like, wait a minute, what?
I got first place now.
No, it was Desi, not you.
Yay! Thank you, Desi.
Desi hacks, not mono hacks.
Yep.
They're different hacks.
Like I said, I'll get a new team next year. I get the first draft right.
A new team next year.
I need to get some new.
Alright.
I think they call it Wax Pro, but yeah, I'm like.
All right, let's see what maps we get this time. Random maps.
I'm actually gonna win this, guy. Sorry, because I just bought the package of wax. Wax
There.
on, wax off. Got that.
Exclamation play.
Anyways, cheers, everybody. Cheers.
I hear.
Yoo-hoo.
Oh,
What?
does that say Lady G?
It does say Lady G.
It was like
So
Lady,
it
right?
could be Lady R.
Yeah. Lady Mary.
Arr.
Looks like I should come down to your next special guest, Mono. Do it. Where
Yeah,
you'll have
please show
someone
me
who
up.
can do the drum roll. Yes. You could like join. It could be like 3 of us.
Literally, we could.
There's enough spot for another chair.
Well, yeah, we are yoga balls.
Just keep
don't you?
getting more people, and next year you know you'll have.
Standing on the yoga ball behind us.
It's probably better for him anyway. He spends more time on his feet than I do. Way longer hours.
Yep. Gonna put Shane on the yoga ball back there.
It's like I worked almost a 12-hour shift Tuesday.
Right?
I think it was Tuesday. No, it wasn't Tuesday.
Hold on, my end. Okay, I'm sorry.
That was one of those days last week, I think.
Alright, guys.
I can't do it.
So you should play if you're lurking and listening.
Fucking
You licking bots?
Damn.
I burned you.
Every time I use a command, it likes the bots.
You gonna put what in chat?
I have you up.
I'm gonna put it in chat. I took a picture at work yesterday that
Uh,
I had to, like, what I had to do for work.
Please share.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Oh, shoot. Oh, this is what she's looking for.
Oh, that's
so
so
cute.
cool, Vex.
I love that.
In this chat.
That's very much her.
In
Yeah,
chat.
top right.
I love her style.
In Discord
Yeah,
chat
do
chat.
all that. Burn it, I hope.
So we're still on paper charts.
What?
What?
Oh.
It's-
You
it's
should get a
2020.
lighter.
Oh my gosh.
Burn it.
Why?
Wow.
So I had
Holy
to alphabetize
shit.
all of
Oh
them
no, fuck that.
No.
and then put them on the shelf.
Nope.
And then
Just
take
start smoking.
2022 and
Y'all don't have a
2023
computer system? Oh.
from upstairs and put them
Uh-oh.
downstairs.
Nope. That's a hard pass for me. That's
Why?
No,
Why
this
are
is
you
why
guys
you
still
pick
on
up-
paper records?
that's
This
Who
is
the
why you
fuck
pick up
knows?
Systems are
smoking.
expensive, I guess.
It's way more expensive to be on paper records. You know how much fucking paper you have to spend? Like how much money you spend on paper? And then the
We-
shelving for the paper?
about the
Well, I'm
trees?
sure any system costs monthly too, so it depends on what kind of system, but there's gotta be affordable systems out there.
There are absolutely a whole bunch of.
It's better to be
Use
data just
them.
in case somebody tries to burn it down. I
All
don't
right,
know
so
what
then
word,
the
but-
next picture I'm gonna send needs some explanation because I am not breaking
Uh-oh.
HIPAA in this.
That's fair.
But
No.
the way that we, you know, make people's charts and have it personalized to them is the first 2 letters of your last name
Mhm.
and the
Okay.
first letter of your first name, right?
Okay.
So unfortunately,
Okay.
this was somebody's tab.
Yeah, luckily mine would
What
make
exactly
no
are you
sense.
alphabetizing? What are these charts? Are these...
They're medical records.
All right, okay.
Yeah, from the 1800s.
That's a meme. There you go. You just found a meme.
Oh, that poor person.
Well,
Oh no.
at least you'll
That's
recognize
so
them and pull the
unfortunate.
Hold on, it's actually better to have that because they will recognize your file faster.
Mm-hmm.
Huh?
I think it would-
Well, I think it's hilarious because every 3-letter word.
All
that you can
right,
think of
Wiggles, you gotta
is
beat
out
me.
there.
Timmy D,
Oh, yeah, I believe it.
Timmy D has just fell off.
Honestly, mine doesn't mean anything. Like I'm thinking about my name in my head. I'm like,
There's
mine's
Wiggles, followed by Lady. No, Thor and Lady are going neck to neck. Followed by Michigan, who's like playing hop, skip, jump, and trying to catch up.
No, I have my ice skates on. I mean, I'm like, woo!
Yeah, right?
I got my skates on.
There's me. I don't know where I
Yeah,
went.
I'm fast as
I got
fuck,
first
boy.
place somehow.
I'm ready to trip on this rock and then.
I went through the
be
finish
done.
line. These finish lines that go to nowhere land, like, it's a lie. Because your marble's gonna die.
Honestly, I don't like these courses because I don't know where I had to end up.
I mean, look, you just fall off the track.
I don't know where.
And you're just gone. You disappear into nothing. Oh, right? Bypassing the finish line.
Yeah, I decided to go for a.
Oh,
You know,
Komodo
he
won.
died
Wow,
right
so
at the end.
surprising.
I did die.
Oh, the streamer won.
I didn't even type packs in there. I don't know what you're talking about.
No, you did.
The EMR system that our hospital used kind of sucks. I sometimes wish we could go back to paper charting. Oh, wow.
Mhm.
Hell no.
Other than being the
want it
person to organize the paper
you
chart.
want it in
And like
there.
when you can't find a patient's file, oh my god, that would be terrible.
You want it on
Kimono
the
has
internet
rigged
just
this
in case something
410
happens to it.
times. Big Grubby!
Paper.
Welcome, Big Grubby!
Hi, Robbie.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Meet Ryan.
Not Ryan Rain.
Meet Ryan.
I don't know
Hi,
who the fuck
Ryan.
Ryan is.
Ryan.
Rigged.
Right.
Well, I'm way over here. You can't fight me. You can fight Kimono. She's right there.
I don't know what you're about. Let's see. Let's zoom out.
I'm wrestling.
Hey, it's snowy.
Man, you seem to so goddamn.
I blame McGrubby for the snow.
So, I have a thing for like wafer, like wafer treats. Like
Yeah.
Uh huh.
it's what I grew up on. Like, it's like the only kind of dessert that we really like. You would get from the store. It's like this wafer.
Oh
It's not candy. It's more like
Are
a.
these the pink ones?
Oh, yeah.
Those ones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
buddy.
Oh, I love those.
We,
Mother
I haven't
got
had
me
one in
these
probably
Strawberry
like
wafers.
10
Lemon,
years, but-
a lemon and chocolate ones. The chocolate ones are gone already.
I've never had lemon. Oh no, Chalky's here too.
Oh god.
Pro marblers.
and they're
Ryan, thank you.
addictive.
I think everyone in the 2 hospital systems uses that. In the state uses Epic. Oh. But
Yeah.
thank you so much for that sub to Vic. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank
Heck
you.
yeah.
Right?
Well-
Wow, let's get a
Welcome.
hype. Sorry,
Right.
that was-
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Play, 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 guys. Oh, I didn't hit the start button on the countdown. That's a
Oh.
problem.
Quick, hit play so you
Need
can
to-
start. Oh, wait.
I need to join
hold
out.
on.
I forgot to join out. I was in the middle of doing.
Hurry
things
up and
in
wait.
chat.
Let's hit
Hurry-
play.
hurry up and wait.
Wait and then start.
Yep. Lady, do you need a deets? Okay, okay, okay. Yeah, thank you, Vix. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We'll talk. We'll talk. Hey. I cheat more than the cheater? When you can. No rush. You're streaming. Yes.
Yeah, 'cause if you
She
outbeat
is.
the cheater,
I'm
you
just
win.
featured here.
She's just a slacker as usual.
Mhm. Always.
Yeah, can't even do the drum roll.
I can- I play instruments. That's what I do.
She's gonna sing for us. That's what she's gonna do.
Fuck no.
All by myself.
Absolutely not.
No, that's Shane's job.
This guy.
When he's here. We gotta put him into a challenging song, though.
Metallica.
Something that doesn't make our ears bleed, but yeah.
No, Metallica.
Why must I tease me so? I'll come soon. Hi, voices in chat. Yes. Intimidea says hi, everybody in Discord.
I was in Discord a little bit ago with Simi. And everyone else.
Cool.
Except I was all robot-y.
Oh.
Yeah. I kept hitting dead zones all the way here.
Mm-hmm.
Not my fault.
Catch. Sweet Home Alabama. No, Shane's gonna sing Tequila. Michigan song.
Michigan song.
My favorite song to sing is Jessica by the Allman Brothers.
Oh? I don't know. Why do I know this but not know this?
Like, what do you mean sing in your shower or like singing karaoke?
Oh, anyway.
Right now, actually.
Yeah, I'll sing it
I
right
think
now.
I
You
got-
ready?
Good, yeah.
Oh.
No, I do not want to hear
Is
it.
it just literally one word, I bet?
Probably just one word.
The tequila song?
No.
That's a cracking rendition of that song. Yeah, I like it. I like it.
Oh my god. Tequila song.
Tequila. I fell.
Alright, I'm done singing
I
it.
think I got lasers.
it?
No, I got first place. Oh, this is the basket. This cute little heart with the lasers is the basket.
I like that high octave you put in the middle there.
Yeah, right?
There, we'll see if we can see you guys come down the way. I kind of like the background though.
No one else is getting
Or
it,
just
but I'm
I.
loving it.
Just past the sign, Sweet Home Alabama. Oh my god. We need to take a shot of tequila. I mean, I have apple pie moonshine and peppermint moonshine, but I don't have tequila.
I have brandy.
I told Rose if we can buy a house with enough land, I'm gonna put my own moonshine still on it.
Nice.
That's not illegal anymore.
Yeah.
It's
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 not?
not illegal. It's for personal consumption.
Oh.
And surely if you're on
How
private
do I
land,
keep winning?
Hey, stop calling me Shirley. Okay?
it's
I don't
not
appreciate
illegal.
it.
I don't know how I keep winning. I don't like it.
I got confused. I came back and
I know
played
how.
these heroes. Like, I'm confused.
It's only illegal if
definitely-
you
I have
sell-
some
Yeah.
Bayou rum. Oh. Shocky has Bayou rum.
That's how.
Rigged.
It is rigged. If I don't win, it's rigged.
Wiggles with the rigged. I just got some
Shots
peach shine straight off this. I heard peach is really good. I have not had peach.
Mm.
Have you had millions of peaches?
You got to go get it from backwoods Georgia, though.
Apparently.
Where you go blind.
Or-
like,
Yeah.
Exclamation play to get your marble on the track, guys. Exclamation play.
and my marbles already been
Excuse me? Hello?
Well, here's one for you, Dream. One of the greatest moonshiners ever from Boone, North Carolina. His name was Popcorn.
Dreams cover.
Popcorn Sutton.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh my
I
god.
was like, Green, how are you in both places? I forgot because you got your own camera.
My laptop over here.
What do you think about that? I could have a
You have to
secondary
say
camera
hi.
for
You have
Discord.
to say hi to the
Mhm.
camera over here.
Yeah, see, look.
Play.
Whole nother
Oh, there she
perspective.
is.
Mm-hmm.
Thor, did you see the guys like
Oh, you do have the other
he
camera
takes
over there,
this
huh?
full fucking jar of moonshine and he drinks it and he like coughs up some of it and he's like, I don't know about that Red Bull stuff and that might give you wings.
So,
Maybe
yeah,
it gives
she's
you
sitting on your
wings."
lap.
He just goes crawling on.
What?
Oh,
Wow.
Who's sitting on my lap?
Ryan. No, not Ryan. Rain.
Ryan.
God, you guys
Hi,
are gonna drive me
Ryan.
insane. No.
Ryan,
God.
what's up?
You know, we did
Ryan
well.
is
We
sitting
got away
alone.
from it for like 2 years, and we're right back in it.
I know.
Literally. Right back to it. It feels weird. I'm shorter than you over here.
Yup.
No, you have to.
Look, I am typically taller than Mona.
Oh, this one isn't gonna work. I forgot.
probably
I'm still shorter.
I don't think
Okay,
it'll let
well,
me share.
Fuck yeah. I got height on her again. Makes me feel better now.
It's not calling
I
me.
felt really
share.
short.
I forgot.
I need one of these desks. Way better than the desk I have now.
These fancies. Is there either my phone screen or am I tired? But I was seeing double mint twins. God, yin and yang twins.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we look alike.
We had a lady ask us at the Asian market if we were sisters.
Oh, we did.
I mean, we pretty much are.
I mean,
Have they seen people before?
Yeah, the best answer to that is yeah, except we have two different dads, two different moms.
I see.
yeah, that's a good answer.
Yeah. Like, we have very
Sisters
different
by
parents.
choice.
Mhm,
So-
absolutely, sisters
hey,
by
look,
choice.
Joe won.
All right, congrats,
Oh, I
congrats.
won.
Michigan, followed by
I
Dreams,
always
Wiggles,
win.
Grubby,
It's
Cat,
not like
Shame,
Clemson.
Lady,
Michigan always
Plitty,
wins.
Shocky, and Thor. Nobody fell off the track this time. Nobody died. The one with the black hair looks like a cool person. The other one.
I think it's the
I
other way
will
around.
show you a nerd. Hold on, hold on. Ah, Oh, God, it's dropped. that's a nerd. Fail. Here, hold on. There we go. Gotta get these on the track. Get on the track, especially there. Now I'm a nerd. But now you can see all the little rings. I hate that. So.
Sorry, I'm in the middle of doing
Doing
something.
it, right?
Actually,
What? What?
pushing the bridge up.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You know, it's really funny. I'm so used to pushing the bridge of my glasses up that even when I wear contacts, I sit there and I try to push it up.
I believe that.
Yeah, after I dropped it. I'm in nerds. Oh my god. Oh.
Yeah,
Just
I
a
also
bunch of
don't wear
nerds here.
glasses. So we will not. Yeah. Oh, should be.
I'm supposed
So
to
she.
be.
We all know
We're out
that.
of it. Fucking.
Hi, hi, hi.
Lady,
Oh,
I didn't know you had
guess what
blue
I got
eyes.
Rose for Christmas?
It looks blue.
I may already know.
I got her an anime cookbook.
We know.
Yeah. I know. We told her she has to share her favorite recipes with us.
And then you decided to share an apron that now all of us have to wear
Yeah.
so we can have our
And
anime.
apparently we all gotta get anime cooking aprons that are matching, and we're gonna wear them and cook together.
I told her there's one recipe that I will not eat, and that's the oma rice,
Oh, really?
the runny omelet thing.
Oh, yeah, that. That's also really hard to do
Too properly. Yeah, I think if it's done properly, it probably wouldn't taste as runny. Only if we can have the, how do you say that? Face one? Oh, that's where you go.
Asiago? I think.
Is that like the blushing face, or is that the rolly eye face?
Oh, God.
The guy
what is
that
that?
makes it, and he's like, oh, and he does this, and he's like, "Kitchi, kitchi," and he fucking takes the plate, but then he takes it back and just goes,
Thor's in the lead,
okay, you go again.
followed by Desi and Kat.
Oh, Asiago? Oh. No.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah, that's. Yeah.
gasm face.
You definitely spelled it wrong. Yes. No. I looked that up on your Wi-Fi, so you're welcome.
Yeah, yeah. Now the police are going over there.
Without.
What?
I was not in incognito mode on that one.
It's okay.
Sorry.
We'll survive.
I'm gonna corrupt your Wi-Fi.
Oh,
We'll survive. Here we go. I think we have. There we go.
Oh, yeah. You didn't even do it.
I didn't, did I?
No, you didn't click on
How
it.
did I not click on it?
I don't know.
These paws are getting in the way.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Pika hat.
your problem.
Pika pika.
I just looked at
And
T's channel and T's brother-in-law's still up.
Yeah,
Dreams
yeah.
or Desi?
Hard time driving
Desi,
tomorrow.
right?
No, he's not driving tomorrow.
Oh, is he not? Alright, I thought
No.
it was.
Alright. There's the basket of things and stuff.
I can see it both
I
ways.
found
I
it.
can see it off of
Pika
way
hat.
back. See it over here.
Now I can take off the paws, because Pikachu does not have cat paws.
Well, not yet.
No, that's the third evolution.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Well, I guess it'd be the fourth because technically you have Pichu and Raichu.
Yeah. They loved each other very, very much.
Oh, jeez.
Oh,
Okay. Alright. Desi's in the lead, but it looks like he's like in nowhere land. Why do I not see anything but black? It's darkness. It's the
Well,
void.
I didn't know we had to get night vision.
The finish line is like upside down, so can I rotate it? There we go.
This is me trying to like get to the bathroom at night.
Wiggles got first place! Somehow. I don't know if it's right side up or upside down, but Wiggles, you got
He
first
bought
place.
The night vision package.
Bio redeemed lineup here. I can see if they still work. I was digging through my basket earlier today and I heard them click. And I was like, what the heck?
Let's put both at the same time. I think that'd be good.
Oh, yeah, see? It's missing an ear. I thought one fell off. Oh, jeez. It's the one-eared lineup. Cat ear.
Exactly. Put them both together. I think that would be good.
Wow.
Hey,
I gotta find
sometimes
the
one
other ear.
ear.
Welcome to the stream, Jamie! Thank you so much for the biddies! Plus, thank you for the raid! And where's my mod? Just kidding, Shane's here. Thank goodness.
I'm about to say, ladies in the kitchen.
Yeah, and Rain ran away, so
Oh,
yeah,
I
welcome to
can't.
the
I
stream,
can't
everyone.
do hype again.
Welcome,
'cause
welcome,
I'm not-
welcome, everyone from Bloody Stream. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to the shenanigans. I have special guests with me today, Lady Rain, and we are playing marbles. And
she has
Jamie,
special
thank
friends.
you so much. Hey, KimonoKat, how are you? I am doing good, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. If you want to join us, we are playing marbles tonight. Exclamation play to get your marble on the track.
Oh, your mod came back.
Yes, mod's back. You guys gotta behave. But yeah, Merry Christmas! Yay! Thank you, thank you, thank you. Welcome,
Oh
up.
shoot! I should probably.
Welcome everyone. Jamie, I hope you had a good Christmas. Bloody, I hope you did too. Meow, 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 meow. Oh, we have a command for that too. Okay.
I tried to hype over hype, but it didn't work.
I gotta find my other ear. It's here somewhere. But yeah, exclamation play to get your marble on the track here. There it is. Tacos? Tacos sound delicious. I'm not gonna find my other ear. I have too many ears.
Hey, can you hear it? Or,
No, I can only hear it on one ear. Rain has my other ear at the
I
moment.
do. See? Other ear.
Yeah, we have one ear each, so we can hear
Oh, that
you
was
guys.
just bad.
Mhm.
Yeah, you should have said ban me and then kick me out. So that's
No.
probably
Why would we do that? I can't find my other ear. Bio, I might have to like. Ah, I found it finally.
Oh, this game is rigged. It won't let me in.
What?
Uh,
Why not?
it's
What's your play?
500.
Oh, gun
I
show?
did.
Oh.
I did
I
two
wanted to
free.
do that,
No, we're
but
not
I
doing
mean-
double guns.
Ah, not double guns.
It's all redeemed for Mono. It ain't for me.
No, you
We're
have
trying.
to.
I didn't
there's
sign up
four
for this.
guns. There's 4 guns.
Oh,
Yeah, see, it won't let. Oh, it did let
Oh
me
yeah,
in. Okay.
no, we're in. It just didn't show you on the map.
Look, you
Yeah, I
have to
didn't
pay
see my name.
$500 to join
oh,
the video
okay. It's because the way it was. What? How did you finish already?
now. That's what she said.
Shortest
Sorry,
track. Oh,
I had to. I had to.
track ever.
Congrats, Shane.
But I like
Now you
the
can
missing
read a
ear.
book.
Oh no,
Now
you
you can
like
go
the
read a book,
missing
yeah.
ear. Now, there we go. Now I have both of them. Sorry.
Sorry, I had to.
Oh wow. Okay then. Yeah. Okay,
Have
we're
fun.
here at the Grand Prix now. Feels bad, man, for who she said that to. What? What happened?
What?
What said what?
What?
I don't know. I don't know. I missed something.
So because I sent
Fine.
sign up for
I
this
don't
shit
want
and
it
saw her.
anymore. What? You don't want it? Well, catch guys if you catch Pokemons.
Sorry, my brain.
Alright, gun show. For the person who reading gun show. Oh, and then cheating ears. Okay.
Gun show?
Mm. Mm.
Yeah. Damn, have you been working out?
Yeah. Been lifting all these boxes. Oh, yes. I cannot redeem that many ears at one time.
No, you have to put all the ears together. More ears is better for you.
I
'cause then
can't.
You can hear.
I'm gonna like refund all those.
You're not allowed to.
Oh, okay. Grand Prix. Here we go. Who's on the podium? Drum roll,
Not me.
please. Third place
Alright.
goes
I
to
forgot the whack.
Thor. Congratulations, Thor, on third place. Do what I want.
Good job.
I hear you, bud. Second place goes to yours truly, Cat.
I've never been on the podium
First
tonight.
place, Wiggles. Congrats, GG. I also
I know
call
it's
Pokemon,
Wiggles.
so I think
I'm
it's totally
glad for
rigged.
it because it is, it's for charity. and I'm
Welcome
glad that you
everyone,
won.
Jamie. I hope you're doing awesome. I hope you had a good Christmas. Rigged well. Okay, I've tried to go back and make sure I didn't miss any
The
chats.
more you donate, the more you put into the side chat, the more bits you give, all that kind of stuff puts you first place.
No,
Let's
I
see.
don't.
Let's see. Where are we at on the things? Cheetah ears. Okay, so we switched to cheetah ears now.
Well, yeah, you already did my ears.
Ugh, I know.
I was gonna say,
I'm like, where are they at? They're already up here because I already wore them once.
yeah.
There we go. Gotta put the. Now we're gonna go get the next set of races lined up.
Let's do it.
Breathe.
I need to win.
Breathing
I have
is
to
good
win.
because
I don't
my head
know
is
that.
spinning. I
Spin.
forget to breathe when I start talking too much.
Well, I guess.
And- Breathe. Breathe.
Well,
Play.
oxygen
Breathe.
actually kills you anyway.
Are we
so
playing?
You actually
We're
live
playing
longer.
Missed the last one.
Exclamation play, guys! Says it's important to breathe oxygen. It is important, Shane. Thank you. Oh, Bloody got his booty burned. Thank you so much for the follow. Thank you. Much appreciated. Thank you. I gotta figure out how to get my notification things back on the things. Wild Woofy. Welcome, Wild Woofy.
Welcome.
8 seconds. Here we go. I came with the bloody raid. I was just dealing with something and getting food. Ooh, food is important. Welcome.
I do love food.
I help. It's rigged, Michigan. I can't help it. It's just totally rigged. You know it. I hope you had a great holiday, KimonoKat. I did. it was quiet and peaceful, and I'm finally getting settled in, and things moved around, and so I'm taking a break this weekend from the shenanigans and hanging out with Rain.
Yes. Promise I am paying attention. I'm also trying to do shit.
Literally.
Trying to get this shit going with Vix.
Oh, you're fine.
Know the terminology of buckaroo for someone who's sleeping.
Portucles.
Can you hear me?
Bicycles.
Does anyone
No,
know
we
the
can hear you.
terminology- Does anyone know the terminology of buckaroo for someone who's sleeping? So if someone's passed out at a house party or something, you throw everything on them until they wake
I
up.
was
and then
looking at
that's buckaroo,
tacos.
Right?
No,
Ooh.
no, you draw on their face.
I
all
want
the time.
tacos.
So there's an old man sleeping in on holiday in the middle of
I want
a
some tacos.
called Spain, right? Quite a big guy, and he's just like this. And his mates around the table have decided to get the coasters, the bar coasters, and rest on top of his head, right? So
Oh.
they got to like
Lady-
5 or 6 or whatever.
Lady
and
fell,
then
Jamie fell, Michigan fell. Is everybody
the
fall
street
off?
joined in and
Yes.
just started doing it, and they got to like 17 plus.
Looks like it. We're gonna zoom out a little bit so we can see a little better.
Oh, so I'm gonna go skiing. Then.
Double grilled marinated steak tacos. How do you double grill something?
You double grill it.
Just
I guess
kidding.
you grill the steak, you put it in the taco, and then you grill the taco? Maybe?
Alright, don't talk about grilling because then
Ah.
I'll have to go grill.
Then you're gonna have to go grill. I mean, as long as you bring us some.
Yeah, I'll put it in.
You're
Amazon.
gonna teleport, right? And bring us some, right?
No, it's gonna be an Amazon package. I'm gonna freeze it.
Game
first.
is it automated or actually played? It is automated, I guess, yeah. You would say. It's
I'm gonna give
random,
myself
yeah.
another beer, why
You just
I
play
lose.
and then you don't control your ball or anything.
Well, some people say that, but some people believe that.
There
you
are
actually
maps where you can though. Where you can battle each other and, knock each other around.
I do believe there's mods get privileges and all that, but I'm not gonna get into it. I'm just saying.
What are you trying to say? Are you trying to say it's rigged?
Yeah, yeah.
Congratulations, Shane. I think it's rigged because Shane keeps doing so well. hmm Him and his greed rigged. I mean, yeah. Bio's not allowed to win because he doesn't play.
Mm-mm. No winning for Bio. It's all me.
Bio, are your legs numb yet? You can say that with a straight face.
Oh yeah, it's not a door, it's a curtain, Momo. So it just looks like we're slightly separated.
Yeah.
But we're literally in the same room. Where is the door in here?
Oh, I turned red. Yeah.
There's things for me to go through here.
Rain, we already know you. Rain can't go back in the closet. It's too late. We already know.
We've known for a while. We've been in the closet a while.
You love it. That's the secret dungeon.
Yeah, it's where you live, Bio.
Mhm. It's my Animal Crossing dungeon.
I remember dungeon. Man, I should have charged my Switch, Sue.
Oh
I
yeah.
haven't charged it in forever.
We
It's
can
just
play
been a
Animal
pain.
Crossing live.
Good. But my Switch is at home.
Play, guys! Exclamation play to join the race. I just had a thought, Mono. If you ever make a cat girl VTuber model, its clothes could be based on costumes from Nekopara. That would be cute. I think the first one would have to have a kimono though.
Mm-hmm.
Kimono and a kimono. I mean, it's nice dungeon. Ooh. Yeah, that would be cute. I agree. Oh, I hit the wrong button. Apparently I rioted.
We're rioting for peace.
There you go. to reminder to join. Exclamation play. Join. Exclamation play.
Yeah,
Get your marble on track.
Stream elements.
Yeah, I did. I burned my bot. One of my mini bots. I have too many.
It's okay. Stream elements deserves it.
Yep. I burnt it. It's toasty. So yeah, this studio is much smaller, Momo, but it's comfy. It'd be okay.
We just gotta set up another area for you to do all your artwork.
I'm going to. Yeah.
So we still might
I'm gonna
Yeah,
have multiple
live.
studios.
Oh, that's right, because you have that other room.
Yeah, I'm gonna have
I forgot
multiple
about
studios. Surprise. So this is my gaming studio, and then I'm gonna have my art studio. And I'm gonna be able to film and record from in there, and you guys can watch the art studio too. And then also there will be some cooking streams because I have got a new fancy dancy camera that is going to follow me around. So
That's fancy.
and it has a microphone, and I can even clip it onto myself. And you guys can follow me around,
That's so freaking cool.
and I can go to the art studio, and I can go to the kitchen. I just have to bring a laptop, so it'll be fun. I just gotta finish getting everything set up. I'm working on it.
Cool.
One thing at a time.
That's so cool.
So
I'm
it's
so
a
happy to
content
see
creator
you.
house
I'm
without
happy to see
other
you
content
too.
creators.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly. It's like a
Yep.
stream house. So, alright, I gotta
But
keep my house
just your
clean.
house.
Sounds pretty cool.
Just her house.
Yeah. Just a cat. The little sister character in Nekopara wears a kimono. Yes.
Tackle each other. And
I'm happy to see you too, Jamie. I miss you. You go live so early. It's hard. I hardly get to. I see it. Oh, Jamie's live. I'm gonna miss
Like
it.
everyone who goes live while I'm at work, and I can't
Yeah.
ever catch them. Like
At
okay.
work. Or getting home, trying to get settled down or whatever.
Which is sad because I don't work all day like I used to.
But
Yeah,
I'll catch
do,
you when
but
I
don't.
can. Definitely. And then, okay, where do we do this? Cheetah done. Pika hat done.
No, I could have been doing
A lot
this.
of beers done. Gun shows done. Cheat
Well,
ears
used
now.
to my-
Now we're on purple. Okay. Now we're on purple ears.
Oh jeez. Why all of the ears?
We'll wear the new purple ones. For
New
15
one?
minutes or
Those are
and
pink.
then
Those look pink for me.
they might
Oh,
be
hey,
pink.
Moto won! Yay!
Oh,
there, I guess I
yay.
Surprise!
Oh yeah, I guess they are purple. It's just the weird lighting.
Yeah. I mean, we could do this backwards and then they'd be like a different purple. Doesn't it look white?
Yeah, I was like, no.
We're gonna be sparkly purple. Finish. Next. Alright, guys. Exclamation play to get your marble on the track. Exclamation play. Oh, this is the haunted one. Marble monster poison.
You just burned your own butt. Why'd you do that?
Ow. Slower and delayed reaction there. Just a little bit. But yeah. Yeah, Jamie's all over the place. It's okay, Jamie.
Always.
I do love your streams though, and I can catch them. Sometimes I just lurk. Sometimes I'm like multitasking and working on other things, so I'll just lurk quietly. I'm terrible. I don't always say hi. Anybody else do that?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure everybody does
No,
at times.
To be honest, I'm like
Oh,
a
here's the
really
other purple
terrible Twitch user, and I usually only
Work comes
hang
early
out
in the
here.
morning. Good night. Good night, Shane.
Night, Shane.
It's all good, haha. I do the same thing. That's the best part of Twitch, right?
Mhm.
I'm really not on Twitch to do it.
Other than I wish it counted the lurkers.
Yeah.
All that
I know.
BS.
Yeah, if you're muted, it doesn't.
I try to do better, but I have too many projects going to chat. Oh, that's
Yeah.
Nico.
Yeah, you're a small business owner type person, Vic.
I put
so
on
yeah.
the purple ears. The other purple ears, the fuzzy
Regular
purple
ones.
ones. Yeah.
Your regular purple ones.
I haven't worn those yet today, so regular purple ears.
We'll have to get
And
your
then-
actual ears in one of those like 5,000.
These are my
Yeah,
favorite
one.
ears, of course. I
I'm
try
not
to
winning
be
anymore.
better, but I have too many projects. It's all
Michigan,
good.
you're cheating. No, never mind.
Am I?
Yeah, you're still cheating.
2 businesses. Oof.
Ha, Thor died.
Wow, that was very impressive. Ah, he died.
Wow.
Okay, army rat over those answers.
Yeah. Something. Ooh. Desi, go! I love the Christmas hat, Desi. Although people can't see it because my head. There.
Well, if you don't have a head, you want to be alive, so technically.
Pull catch. You want the big bird Pokemons? Pull catch. Those ears are so cute.
They're the
Thank
original
you.
mom ears.
Yeah, they're my originals. I love them. There's only one thing I had before this, and that was like a pullover cat hoodie that I still have. But I don't really wear it too much.
It's too warm here.
It is too warm.
Yeah.
And then you're also in a smaller space now, so it's
It's gonna be warmer.
yeah. Better than me. I sit by the freaking patio door
You're gonna freeze.
literally every day because the cats insist that they have to be outside. Spoiled brat.
See?
You let the cats
Crazy.
outside. Unleashes them.
Well, on the patio.
It's an enclosed patio.
Ah.
You've seen this, Wiggles. You've
It's
seen
like
my
a-
patio.
yeah.
I
it's
did,
like
I
a-
did kind of, yeah. That's right.
It's like a porch
remember, I'm
balcony.
Yeah.
How
Or
dare you.
room.
But it's a
We're
patio
screen
thing.
patio. I love it.
Oh, somebody just died. It was me!
You died.
Because Shane pushed me off.
Shane cheated again.
He
'cause
pushed me
won
off
this
so
time
he could
again.
get in the basket.
Rude.
Later died.
Right?
Shane gotta do that.
I don't win anyway.
Dreams got pushed off as well. Jamie caught the Pokemon! Congrats, congrats, congrats. Ow! Alright, congrats, Shane. GG. Okay, gonna lurk. Okay, fix. Good lurking. And then it might be bored.
You definitely gave me the broken one.
She got the second-hand chair.
Sad, so sad.
So I was taller, and then I got back up.
Well, I
and-
can't have you being. Oh God, I can't have you being
Wow.
taller than me. I hit the wrong
but
button.
I'm naturally taller than you.
I know. Oh my God, Wiggles! Thank you so much for the 500 biddies. Holy cow!
Woo, so many.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Hi. I'm gonna push the wrong button again. I'm trying to figure out where's the buttons. Where am I pushing? Ooh, Tammy's on the tracks, guys. We're in trouble now. Jamie's gonna kick our booties. Wiggles got his booty burned. That was my show of appreciation. Apparently, was to burn your booty for those biddies. Oops.
You burning the biddies.
Booty bitties.
Oops. My bad.
Anyways, or we're gonna do it like
I'm
NASCAR.
spatial play,
where
guys.
You know, we have to be allies here. We're gonna
If you're lurking and listening, hurry, hurry, hurry.
Like NASCAR.
Alright, so we are done with purple. And now we're on to black cat ears. Okay, I gotta see if I can find a black. Oh!
Not the ones that I've been wearing.
Yeah, Rain's currently got the black ones. I have another black pair though. Somewhere. Okay, I need to upgrade into 2 baskets, one just for cat ears and one for hat. Because
Yeah, you've got quite a few in there.
there's too many things. There's even holiday crap in here, so.
You have more than
Oh.
Pika hat?
Yeah. We won't talk about that yet. Oh, and then here's the.
Oh yeah, the thing I made.
This counts as cat ears, right?
I don't know how cat eerie it is though.
Ugh. It doesn't have a lot of ears. Oh, there they are.
I don't
Yay.
know.
There's the other ones.
I found them. Yes. Now we both have black ears. There's just gonna be ears all over the floor. Just saying.
Well, I hear that. Yeah.
There
What?
was a cat fight.
I appreciate.
KimonoKat. His ass is on fire. I was like, what is he talking about? I'm like, oh yeah. Push Thor forward. Do it. Push him out of the way.
No, forward.
We
We're
lost
supposed to,
Jamie.
like,
We lost Cat. We lost Desi and
supposed
Wiggles.
to drift. Or not drift. What's that?
Thor's winning.
Draft. I couldn't think of the word.
That's
Yeah,
about
draft.
right.
Thor is winning.
Yeah, I pushed him. I told you. Like, I
I
made him screenshot around my car.
Oh, I forgot to get in on
My
this
ball.
one.
Oh yes. You guys that came in on the raid earlier, if you're lurking and listening, I'm a variety streamer. I do art streams and community games, and I love Stardew Valley.
And putting up with our shit.
Yeah,
I guess, yeah.
put up with all these guys. Like,
Always
you
putting
know.
up with shit.
Hey, speak for yourself. Just putting up with your shit.
Hey.
Hey, someone's gotta
I
put up
love
with my
pizza.
shit.
Angel wins in
Pizza's
a Halo.
good.
That's all I gotta say. Angel
Do you
wins
like
in a Halo.
pineapple on pizza though? We need to know.
I hate this.
Anyways, Thor, I pushed you forward and I died.
See, I don't like pineapple on my pizza.
Wrong answers only.
I will try to win on your behalf.
Yeah,
I
crashed my car
do.
right
Will I
into
be
the
banned
corner.
now? No. She better not. She's the mod, so no. No. I like pineapple on pizza too.
Outside of that? What the?
Pineapple and ham.
I freaking.
1 second. You're so terrible. You're so terrible. She's bad. What? You're bad.
I don't know what's going on there.
Oh, that was close. I was
Emote, though.
a second
So
off of
naughty.
the world
Here,
record.
look at this. So you can
pushed
see it
you,
a little
man.
bit better.
Yeah. Right? Yep.
Those fingers look very Qatar. That's all I'm saying.
Alright.
Forget-
Thor got first place.
Yeah,
Well,
look at that.
Luffy's on their way down.
I was 1.3 off of the world record.
I pushed you, but I didn't push you hard enough.
The only reason Wild Wolfie got second is because of this person here. Timed them out for 1 second. Just kidding.
Just gotta keep you on your
Mid
toes,
for
guys.
pet scratches. Aw, that's cute.
I'm glad you won, though.
Mm.
'Cause I crashed my car right into the corner, right when it.
So you could put like a kitty emote in front of it. Well, no. You can't.
What?
You should put a kitty emote in front of it for pet scratches, but right now you can't.
No, I don't have it.
I love that emote. I really
My
do.
bad is a little slow. No, your ball is a little slow. It's all good.
Ooh,
Nick Dothy! Welcome to the stream, Nick Dothy!
I definitely have cat emotes galore, but
We are having fun tonight. I have
Finger.
special guest Lady Rain, my mod, with me today. So,
Ryan.
go Ryan!
Also, I forgot I made that.
Oh yeah.
Your little cat gun holding a gun.
I love that when you join though. Oh! Which one? How are you, Nick Dothy? Oh, can we get some shout outs for like
Yeah.
Bloody and Jamie and Nick Dothy?
Do it. All great streamers.
I've had that howl for years now. I love it.
Shit, is it not letting me
Oh,
do
Jamie
it?
playing spoopy game.
Yeah, same
Oh.
here, too.
Okay.
Huh? Oh, that's why.
Remake, I'm guessing.
A lady's turn to get burnt.
How rude.
Well, she's right next
Next we
to
should
you.
play, guys.
Just burn her. Not,
No, I mean,
I'm not. I don't Indoors.
Not me over here being a guest and also doing my job as a mod.
I mean, Shane stepped
well,
away, so
you
He
have to
did. He
sleep in
had to
that
go
room,
to
so-
bed.
something about
I'm not
sleep.
sleeping in here. I'm sleeping in her
work.
room.
Am I in? No.
Oh, it's Moto's turn.
It
to
was
play.
the worst. Ha ha ha. I'm done with SH2 now. Thank goodness. Now it's Mona's turn. No.
Is it the remake?
I do have a cool game I want to play though.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the remake of Silent Hill 2.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
No,
it's the
no,
remake.
too spooky for me.
Not that bad. But I mean, I guess like Vix has played, I'm pretty sure all of them. Yeah, I think Silent Hill is one of Vix's favorite games.
I am a scared.
For sure.
I will admit.
And she really likes Resident Evil as well.
Everybody going around the ring.
We get to watch
I
Jamie's
think
ball
that
with her model headshot.
With rain, there you'll be fine.
Well, I got my model.
We could
headshot,
also
though.
take turns. I think that would definitely help. That'd be hilarious too.
That would be fun.
Yeah, every time you scream, you gotta give up the controller instead of die.
I will just
Yeah.
start screaming so she can have the controller. You didn't start yet. Yeah, no, the shadow scared me.
Here's the-
Autocorrect. At least you didn't call her Ryan like we have been tonight.
Oh God.
She really loves that.
No, I don't.
That is
It's her
actually
no
favorite
way.
nickname.
You gotta charge. It's right there behind you on the
Oh, it's behind me.
right there in the
That's
corner.
so convenient.
Yeah, it's right there behind you, so you could just like scooch back and plug
I
in.
don't know why I looked over here like there's a visual.
Plug it in. Plug it in. I know. You had to plug in Rain's laptop.
I was gonna die on me otherwise.
I was in. What?
I don't know. I don't know what that
My
was.
brain went wrong.
Yeah, my brain hiccuped. Oh,
Only thing I do is read books.
You did what?
No, only thing I do is read books. I'm very
Oh,
readable.
what book are you reading?
How to Survive. I wrote it.
Wild Wolfie is in the lead, followed by Lady Rain, Desi, Wiggles, and now that all just changed. Thanks to this rotating platform of what the heck?
Hey, I was in last place, so keep changing.
Yeah, this platform's
Hey,
interesting.
go Packers.
Let it go, Joe. Just let it
For
go.
this.
Let it go. For the love of God, let it go.
Oh, there goes Lady.
No, because we need.
Desi! Desi got in there first. Desi, Lady, Wiggles, Wild Wolfie. Oh?
Where the hell is my ball? Way back there.
I'm not gonna comment. Where are you? There you are.
I don't know.
He's trying.
Yeah, leave me alone.
He's trying to make sure he gets on that podium. Mm-hmm.
I'm making sure you guys know me. As
I think I might drag you out there.
that couldn't win.
We're gonna get in trouble.
Michigan
Okay.
getting in there 4 days later.
Hey,
There's-
I
there's-
say take
We can
it
go
slow.
have lunch
Take it
over there. Go
Mhm.
to the ramen place.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And it's much closer than where I'm at.
Oh, Rose also
Alright.
said that she showed you her new lamp.
Yes, she did. It's so cute.
So adorable.
Ramen bowl. Drum roll. Third place goes to. Voila. Mwah.
Fucking rigged.
I never
It's
been on
rigged.
the podium. Is it because I
Not
keep
today,
falling
anyway.
off?
Thor
I just
gets
keep
second
falling off.
place with his hammer. And Chain, of course, even though he left early. He left early, and he gets first place.
Yeah, look at this ball, very plain. Sir.
How? Rigged.
I keep falling off the podium, so somebody else just jumps up. Take.
Rigged. Yes. Okay. I'm going to set this up, and then I'm going to take a quick break, guys. We're going to do a be right back break. Ooh.
How dare you?
And, or I could leave Rain here.
God, no.
Okay, we're going to do be right back. I need
Nothing
let
against
Rain-
you
let
guys.
Rain stream.
let Rain stream.
I really don't want to stream.
Yeah,
I mean, that's easy to do. I just take the photo, drag me out of it, and then it's just her.
It's true, you can't
We're
move
right
it,
next
but
to the
please
question
don't.
mark. Oh, I'm right next to the
So-
question mark.
On the live stream, you know, it's just Rain now.
No, no.
It's not me. Oh, poke catch, guys. Alright, I think I got these 5 maps lined up.
Well, do a good break.
And then we're going to... Oh, what does that say, Casey? I love you, Casey. What?
Interesting.
Who's
I
Casey?
guess this must be for someone's significant
Casey,
other.
I
hey,
think
Casey,
so.
I made a map
I was-
just
Oh
for you.
yeah,
I
it
was gonna
absolutely
say.
is.
Nothing
I love
says
you,
true
Casey.
love like, hey, I made a marbles
Yeah.
map for you.
You want
Right?
to marble
Mhm.
with me, Casey?
Ah yes. To be young and in love again.
But I do need a quick be right back break, guys, so we're gonna figure out how to
We'll
Oh, I
be
know
Fine,
ready.
you
yeah.
find Casey.
Do your thing.
back soon.
Next one.
Hey babe, you're never gonna believe this. I built you in Minecraft.
You love me better there than you do now. Hold on, I'm gonna. Yeah. My cat loves it. What?
Hello there.
Yeah, I guess it's
A
pussy
little
loves
warning
things.
would be nice. Jeez.
Yeah, well, I could have been talking
Did you
about
not
my
see that I
feelings.
deafened myself on my laptop? Jeez, guys, pay
I
attention.
could have been talking about my deep feeling. Let's get.
I
No, I'm
mean,
just talking about.
it's
how
not
my
Friday
cat-
Night Light without a little inappropriate content. So
No, I
My
was just
hat,
talking about how my cat
moonshine,
loves Mason.
and shot glasses. Yay or nay?
Oh Jesus
Yay.
Christ!
Yay.
Yeah.
Which one? Right, left.
That one.
Okay.
What does it say?
What they got on it?
What's it say?
I don't. Well, those are very
Giggity.
beautiful.
Oh,
Those are actually
God.
pretty good. Those are, actually
Shot
good.
glasses never lie.
No.
Those are actually pretty good though. Those are-
Try not to spill it on my
Oh
new
God! Holy shot!
I
No,
accidentally
we're
poured
going
it to the
hard.
top.
We're going.
I poured it to the top.
Apparently. I'm not a liquor drinker.
Well, you're gonna be partying tonight.
That's not
Cheers.
what the shot glass says.
Yeah, that is
yeah.
definitely not what the shot glass says.
Oh.
Cheers! Oh shit!
Oh.
Delayed.
Yeah, cheers.
You liquor, you brought her.
No, where'd Lady go? Oh, she's out there just.
Oh
being
god,
on the
it's so
ground.
good.
It is actually really good.
It is for like hard liquor. It's very smooth. That's why I like the apple pie
Is
one.
it ice cold too?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, that makes a huge difference too.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I'm not huge on liquor because a lot of it's usually dope.
Alright. Sorry to make you guys wait this long.
One of these days, we gotta get you like some real moonshine.
Okay.
And
I've
it-
had
it's a
some
question
real
if you're gonna
apple
go
pie
blind or not.
moonshine
Like,
homemade
Good
once.
idea, bad idea.
Well, they don't drink that much, so they would probably just be both on the ground. Just.
Bloody's missing the show. He would be happy.
Oh, I didn't get in on this. Damn it.
Did I get in
I
there?
can just see
Okay.
it. Florida streamer dies.
I didn't get in either. If that helps.
Oh
Dies
wow.
and goes
Hold
blind
on,
and
this-
dies from drinking moonshine.
No,
Also, you weren't around, but I romanced that one in the next game that I played.
Nice.
I'm telling you, once a pale
it's
elf,
funny
always a
seeing
pale elf.
Kimono peek her head on your camera. It's like,
Playing more Baldur's Gate.
No, I've been playing Dragon Age, and I just finished Dragon Age 2, and I romanced Fenris, which is also a white-haired elf.
All right,
Except
which
he's not
color?
a rogue like Astarion is.
We are on Rainbow
hit the
Cat
hole.
Ears. Rainbow Cat Ears for bio. I think we finally made it through all the ear rotations.
But I didn't romance Zevran in the first one.
well, I
Zac
romance.
Efron?
Wow,
Zevran.
Oh.
Damn, he got some money. So.
You bring it, bio, bring it. If you want more. I have new ones, but I haven't put them in yet. Drink water. Water.
More moonshine.
Posture check. Okay.
Are you guys making me posture check? Fuck that shit.
Reindeer antlers. I forgot that was still on there. Tiny Christmas hat. Oh my god. I'm gonna need some more moonshine for all that stuff. No tacos. Sushi instead. You missed the shots, bio. They did happen.
I'm
I did.
afraid for
I was there.
Florida tonight.
Did you just say you're afraid for Florida?
Ah,
I'm like,
I should be afraid.
Florida man meets Florida woman. Women.
Florida women.
Is that how it
Yeah. That's how Florida children are born.
What? I didn't know that. I thought you guys had to wrestle alligators. I'm not sure how.
Oh my gosh.
How
Gun show, emo only mode.
Damn,
Okay,
how many
okay.
points do you have?
Sounds like he's trying to use them all up.
I am curious as to how many bio has, cause I've got a lot.
Can't you? I don't have
I've actually built up quite a. I got 23,000. I mean, that's not a lot.
Oh, I've got
A lot.
quite a bit more than that. I have 191,000.
Dang, so gun shows
It's our
are.
moderator though. That's a
Well,
little
don't
different.
don't arm wrestle her because you're
Fair.
gonna lose.
I lurk a lot.
You
How do
can
we
do
turn on
gun
emote
shows
only?
50 times.
Emote only mode. How do I do? No, I cannot.
The command for how long we've been here.
Uptime,
Yeah, not that one
Oh,
though.
just look at
Not
your
the.
follow age.
I knew about follow age, but I was like hours. Oh, it just shows on cookies, huh? But it's not
Follow
quite.
age.
Yeah, there
Mine's
we
like 4.5.
There you go. Can you put in emote only mode for a minute?
go.
I don't remember how at the moment.
That's a good question,
Not
because
either.
give me a second.
Why did you? Oh,
We did posture check.
How do I do that?
We did gun show.
Oh, there we go.
Now we're going into emote only
There we
mode.
go. I got
There
it.
you go, guys. Ready to do all those emotes. Go, go, go.
Oh,
Congrats,
what the
Jamie.
fuck is that? Champagne though.
Yeah, what is that? Mm-hmm.
well, I can't do the same thing.
Oh, they
I'm not
can
good.
play because it's an emote only. No, wait a minute. This is intermission. You can't play yet because we're in emote only mode. There's like little wings.
You're my little kitty. A little gun kitty. A little Brooke.
Oh, this was
Cute.
I got my Twitch thing back, and the lick was my favorite.
Oh no, I burned Vix by accident.
Oh, not Vix.
Hugs Wild Whoopie. Licks Desi. Run Desi. Oh.
No, lick was actually my favorite emote this year. Twitch said.
Nice. You leveled up, Thor.
That's him.
Hey, not fair. You get to type still.
The prince.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's my bastard prince
How
that I
dare
have.
you.
That's him in the third.
I'm pushing buttons. I'm not typing.
Cheater.
Okay, you can take it out of emote only mode.
I'll just keep using this one.
Oh yes, no dumpster fire.
All right, now you guys can actually hit exclamation play
I don't
and
wanna play
join
anymore.
the track. And then I'm on to what? Drink water. I didn't see that one.
No,
Jeez.
nobody says no. That's drink alcohol.
I can't drink water, but I got a Pepsi.
Okay, reindeer antlers. Got it.
The more drunk you are.
Wow, it's a
the-
turtle. Who's the goblin next to you? This is Ryan.
Not Ryan.
Goblin.
Hi,
Ryan.
Ryan.
Hi, turtle.
Ryan.
This is Ryan. I mean Rain. Ryan, aka Rain.
I'm gonna fight you.
Lady Rain. She said she wants another shot. That's what I heard.
No.
I did too. Actually, I heard that.
That's what I
actually.
heard.
Hold on, she
That's
just
what I
messaged
heard.
me. Oh, yeah.
No, I didn't.
Help.
No, they're right here. She wanted to-
I also heard that. Right?
Oh shit. This fucking bullshit. Did not happen.
I heard it.
I heard it.
Oh.
Well, you can't lie on stream.
What the fuck?
What? Crazy. I know nothing.
Oh,
I don't know
Lono,
either.
if you want a little more cinnamon taste in your moonshine, you could put cinnamon sticks in it.
Okay, yes, but typically.
Let them marinate. Mm.
Well, had you
That's
said
what-
something earlier, I could have brought my cinnamon sticks, my guy.
I have
You
some
should have.
They're
you
at
know what?
Publix.
hot
You knew this.
cocoa.
I
None of
have
us got
some
the
at
memo.
home, and Publix is elsewhere. Why do you have Pepsi on right here?
Hot cocoa and marshmallow flavored donuts.
I don't know. It's all in 7-Eleven.
I know. I'm gonna try these. We're gonna try this.
Got two of them. I guess we're just gonna snap one of them.
You have to share them now.
Yeah. That's usually how it goes.
You gotta
sometimes.
dip them in the apple pie moonshine.
I know, right?
No.
Oh, no, fucking
You get the first one.
It'd be like, you know the rich tea
She's
It's
trying to
not
poison
taco.
you.
I don't know if you
Trying to
see
poison
tea
you.
biscuits over there, but rich tea biscuits you meant to dunk in your tea, but they're like 1 second dunkers. It's like fucking dunk before it then.
Those are way better than regular chocolate ones.
Your donuts, but you just fucking leave it there to just soak up.
It just tastes like a sweeter chocolate
like
one.
the plain vanilla wafers that Wiggles.
Want, like,
the
marshmallows
same-
in it.
Same brand as those wafers, but they're just vanilla.
Mm-hmm.
If you dip those things in coffee, good lord.
Mm.
I dip them in
Sounds
tea.
amazing.
I dip them in
Mm.
I have your
Oh, catch,
Gold,
guys.
or I'll do it in Earl Grey, and it's fucking
So-
phenomenal.
Ooh, I love Earl Grey too.
Dang, I'm a lightweight. Mm.
One
shot.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the
Oh, just one, and I can feel that dang thing already.
you know it will change your life.
It sneaks up on you.
Well, your
It's
enzymes
you.
are not-
And you use
Oh, you're she wants another one.
fire.
No, if
Just
she does another one,
What?
she might be dead.
absolute fucking fire. Like,
Alright.
change
Here we go.
No, your enzymes are not used to it. You don't drink it. Sorry.
I have my coffee ready. Unfortunately,
Wiggles
I'm a
is
week
in
late,
first
and I have to
place,
have
by the way,
something
guys.
later.
He is?
Wiggles-
Well, he's
Wiggles
definitely a
fucking
cheater
made.
then.
That's right.
Look, I don't
Hey,
usually
Wiggles
drink
redeemed.
liquor.
After my ball.
Celebration.
That's fire.
Got to. We're not
Alright.
playing golf, so I gotta touch your ball some way else.
What?
What?
Damn, we're touching balls.
Quote
now?
it.
Damn.
Quote it.
Quote it,
Just tell
quote
Rose
it,
that.
yes. Quote it, quote
That
it,
shot
quote it.
is hitting hard.
I can't quote it for you, but somebody quote it.
Mm.
Yeah, that's good. Sean's not here. Shane's not here.
All those
Need somebody-
portals. I mean, everybody's finishing though.
Thank you.
Why are you so
Oh god, so many jokes.
I know, I apologize.
That's a
I-
first
gotta
for
shut up.
some. That's
And
a
I'll be
first
honest
for
with you,
some.
I'm fucking loving it.
I'm glad everybody's having a good time.
Please don't spill it. You were tilting it. Jesus Christ.
You need to quote that, but nobody can quote it because
What
nobody
shot you
else
thinking? What's the
strong.
shot again?
Moonshine.
Apple pie moonshine.
Fuck off.
Hell
Yep.
yeah.
Oh, girls, you're gonna be fucking on the floor.
They're American girls. They're stronger. Sorry.
Woman on the floor.
Florida girls.
Well, American girls.
Florida woman.
When's the
There's your
fucking-
next headline.
when's fucking-
Florida women.
Florida woman found dead on floor.
No.
Too much
No,
moonshine.
it's gonna end up being me.
Well,
Florida
still
woman
live
found
streaming.
at Taco Bell.
Streamer. Florida streamer found dead on floor.
What is that? Cactus?
Breaking
Cactus.
Yeah, it's some weird cactus.
They
What
try
did
to
you
wrestle
say?
out
Escaped, nobody
again.
caught it.
What did you
Not
just
win.
say?
Cheers,
It's a weird
thank you,
what?
Jamie. That's a cute little cheers emote. I like that. The little shot glasses, little rainbow shot glasses.
So,
So
Is
I
that
think
yours?
You guys trying to wrestle
her heated
away
blanket
out
came
here.
in.
No,
It's on my pillow.
Oh, she's happy. She's got your pillow and a heated blanket, so she'll survive while you're gone.
So you guys can see in Discord at least.
I'm the same way. When
Our
I
cats
was
are missing her.
But I bought her a heated blanket, so she'd have
There
a
you
heated
go.
blanket for
Play, 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 play. Get your marble in the
Dude,
chat,
I'm the
guys.
same way.
55 seconds.
When I was at Spencer's house, like I missed my cat and she missed me. It was so weird.
Donuts,
how was it
madame?
Sleeping in that
I'm
little,
okay right now.
little
Okay.
closet thing back there.
What is it? What about my closet? You want me to
In
go
the
back in the
cupboard
closet?
under the stairs?
Go back in
No,
the closet.
No, at Splintz's house. That's where
Oh yeah, that's
It
where
was-
I yeah, that
was
was
in
my
that,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
that little box
Yeah.
back there.
No. Well,
Hmm?
I would have broke it just by my shoulders alone, but yeah, I was there.
It's like I can, you know, go in the closet.
Are you gonna
She could
tell us
probably
what's in
fit.
there?
A bunch
Bring
of
your shot.
crates and boxes in there.
Bunch of boxes. And
Oh, she's gone. Yeah. We'll catch
she could
her
probably
in
fit
a
in
week.
there.
Literally could fit in here.
Yeah.
For a
If
week.
she got out, oh, sorry. There's a cord in the way. She can't go.
I
There's,
can't.
there's a tripwire.
Yeah. There's a
I mean,
She's
No,
like,
Yeah.
that's
That's
just
the
for-
AC
that's
water
just for
pipe.
people escaping.
hey, your shot glass says that that's already too late.
Exactly.
ladies
No,
never
she's not
leaving
in here.
again.
You can't- you
She
can't
she
go
went
there.
back in. They got to switch shot glasses.
Anyways, take care, lady. It was nice to know you.
She's getting in
No,
my
no,
doors
she's
again.
Dreamer's friend.
Look at that, she
Dreamer's
slipped in your
friend found
baskets
dead in
again.
closet.
Hey, look, a thing that I made you.
Oh yeah, you're bringing out here the basket with the dice.
Oh, I don't want to see it. 'Cause
I
it
mean the
might be-
basket, the bag of holding with dice. There we go. Yeah, Reed made this.
Are you digging through his shit?
That's what she does.
Fuck you.
Because she's had 2 shots.
Yes, I can. I was just
Hold on,
doing
that
it
looks
sober
like-
or not.
No, these actually were made by Cuff. Believe it or not, these are
Yeah, I was
resin
gonna say,
dice.
Those are probably the tester ones, right?
These are resin dice. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I
the
still never got
3D
my.
So
dice.
the dice were handmade and the bag was handmade and I'm special. So apparently. There you go. Put it back in the safe spot.
Back in the days.
Yes.
Yeah, keep.
All right,
that.
Raid, put the sack back in the closet.
No,
Well,
I'm
you-
back
you
being
have-
shorter than you.
you
This
held that.
bullshit.
Am I gonna win?
Oh, yeah.
At least
Yeah, because this is the one I have.
'cause I don't win. I always win it online. I should, yeah, even though I should.
No.
Loving it.
I do.
Oh, I
like-
died.
I don't
Oh!
own any roosters.
GG
I
Vix.
got second.
GG. GG got first. Nice. Chicken and
I like
cat.
cats
Yes.
too much.
Uh-huh.
I think that's
Totally.
I
Come
blame
on, Dream,
Wiggles.
hurry up.
Come on, Dream. Stop dreaming.
Yeah, man. You know, I'm always last enemy. Said that
It's
to an
actually
enemy
me
once,
now.
so-
Yeah, because you keep winning,
So
so
if
you
you
have
had
to
any
like
wanted
slow
to know.
your marble.
This is my little private one.
Oh wow, your story. Cool. I haven't started typing in mine yet. I think I wrote something miscellaneous
Yeah,
there.
Yeah. I could see literally everything you were typing in there. I'm like, wait a minute, I need to turn notifications off for that. Unfortunately, I can't keep it private for myself.
Well, now you gotta share.
Now I have to share online.
Private Discord channel.
It's girls only,
Well, you
aka there's only 3 of us only.
I like girls.
She
only.
created it. Blame her.
It's the book club. You're not invited to the book club. It's girls only.
Well, I can't read.
Oh, it's that kind of book club.
Yeah.
No, we have a
is.
girl club right under.
Yeah, my wife is one of those too.
I'll be right
Well,
back.
so
all about
I
it.
created it as just a safe space for a couple of us.
Joe.
Bye.
Bye. Did he jump ship or did he
did
like
jump on us.
or did he like
Joe.
get,
Michigan.
or did his internet die?
I don't know. I don't think his internet died.
He probably said bye and I didn't hear
Yeah,
him
we're-
because I'm a
there's-
terrible person.
I have one that's just my D&D stuff. That's only me.
Guys, hurry! You got 30 seconds. Switch your plane.
No, on the,
Hurry! Hurry! Hurry!
all of us girls. and
Rain.
Some non-binary. No.
Hurry! Exclamation point, guys!
I got my little book.
Hurry! Hurry! Hurry!
God.
You guys are all missing the boat.
I miss no boat.
You're gonna burn. I burnt Thor.
Look at me. I'm the captain
Okay.
now.
And I burned Dreams. Congrats.
What?
And here I'm the one drinking moonshine, and everybody else is missing the boat.
You can't say what to a bunch of millennials.
What?
Well, what?
In the butt.
Oh no! She finishes my sandwiches.
Totally.
I'm saying it because
I would too. I would finish your sandwich if you couldn't finish it.
Mhm. No point in
That's why
wasting
we're
good
sisters.
food. Okay, so this one has a weird finish line, and it's like super quick.
And I also didn't hear you. So,
What?
Said what?
Right, Jamie? Jamie, if you lived
Actually,
closer, we definitely would have to have you as a special guest.
Oh.
Because you're amazing. Just saying.
What a change.
Congrats, streams.
Thanks. I've been working all night.
Alright, last leg. As we go into this, we have Dreams, Thor, Wild Wolfie, Lady Rain, KimonoKat, Vixen, and Wiggles. Alright, guys, get on the track. Get on the track, guys. Most important part, get on the track. That would be so fun. We would be crafting together for sure. Yes. We do I like doing art streams.
Oh, I can spell.
Arts and craft streams. We're gonna get Lemon in here crocheting again.
That was another thing that I got her for Christmas was a book with a bunch of patterns in it.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's a really cool gift.
I have a crochet Pokemon book.
All right, guys. play.
I haven't used it yet.
Crochet what? Pokemon?
Mm-hmm. I have a book dedicated to making crochet Pokemon.
Are you gonna make me a Pokemon?
I haven't even made myself a Pokemon.
How do you make yourself a Pokemon?
It depends on if it's in there, because it's only so many patterns.
I don't care.
It's fair. And
You get to pick. But yes, I would love a crocheted Pokemon. Where is... I don't know where my cat is you made me right now. That's... I love my crocheted kitty cat Rain made.
So you can
It's
see
so
some
cute.
previews. It looks like a Gengar.
Gengar.
They have 20.
Jigglypuff. Ooh, Eevee!
Pikachu, Lapras.
Show me crocheted Pokemon patterns.
Yeah.
Magikarp. Use Splash.
See, it looks like some of these use actual felt, but I would probably end up crocheting. The
Yeah.
pieces.
Okay, I would be happy with Magikarp or Eevee.
Wait, this one's different than what I had.
Because Magikarp is OP.
Even more? Oh, I need this one too.
You gotta make some of the from the
This
first set
No,
first.
no, but this has evolutions.
Oh my god.
This one.
I don't know.
This one.
See that I hit? I think I hit it early.
Oh. I was gonna say, are you dipping in the moonshine too? Because that could be
I
it.
mean, I'm definitely having cocktails. It's Friday night. Also, I don't go back to work. I haven't been at work since my last day was Tuesday, and I don't go back to work until the 3rd.
Yeah, my last day was last Friday at noon.
Ooh. I wish
That's
I work in
awesome.
retail.
Yeah, and I don't go back till the 6th because I'm a slacker.
No, fuck that. Not a slacker. Rightfully earned PTO. Use that shit.
Yep. I am unfortunately still working on my house though, so I'm technically working.
Yeah.
Just
Working
organizing
from
my
home.
life. That's what I call it, organizing my life.
The most necessary part of your life.
Mm-hmm.
I will be right back. I'm gonna. Don't
But I'd
shut
rather
without me
do
on this
that than probably go to work. So
Yes, that ain't the fucking truth, man.
is it so bad that you would rather wash dishes and do laundry than go to work?
Yeah.
That
That's
brings,
me on a daily basis.
that
but I'm
brings
not
things
paid
into
enough.
check
What to
reality
do.
big time. Would you rather do the dishes, the laundry, or go to work?
Well,
Guys, let me know in chat. Which one would you rather do?
The dishes.
just because I fucked up. I fucked up.
What'd you
She forgot to switch over the laundry.
No.
do? She did. She left stuff in the dryer.
Oh, that's okay. If it's in the dryer, it's dry.
Oh. I can't fix it because there's no one there. I'm off for 2 days.
What kind of thoughts?
Not quitting thoughts.
No work things?
Oh, it's work.
Oh, God. Rain's getting fired.
No, it's just my honest thoughts.
And I got first place.
Definitely Not what I don't didn't intend to give it to anyone.
Do we need
This is my thoughts.
to ride an hour and a half out of town tomorrow?
No, it'll be too late by the time we get there.
Oh God. Third place on the podium goes to Thor. Congrats, Thor. Second place goes to Vix.
And no, we
First place goes to.
there's a particular
I know.
person at work that makes me not want to work a lot of the time.
rigged.
And so I
rigged.
was just writing down
That's
my
definitely
thoughts to
rigged.
get it out. I wasn't
Okay.
intending to give it to anyone. It's just like a, practice letter type thing. And I left it out on the desk and completely forgot about it.
I don't have enough to buy Pokeballs.
What is it a letter of?
Me just writing
Venting.
down my thoughts, venting. Yeah.
Well, you
It's
printed
not like
it?
Huh?
You printed it?
No, it was
It's
a
all
handwritten
written.
thing.
Oh, handwritten. Ah.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can afford to buy 3 Pokeballs.
Oh,
I can't. Thank God. Okay, Poke. Because what the heck kind of Pokemon is that, by the way?
I guess I can text one. I think G.
What is that? It's a Pokemon? It looks like a Christmas cookie
It
with
is a
sprinkles
Pokemon.
that hasn't been flattened out. And
Oh, I think it's one of the bug Pokemon from Paldea. Oh yeah, Relor. It's one of the Paldean bug.
I need to play more Pokemon.
I think it's
Don't tell Shane, but I need to play more Pokemon
You do.
because I don't even recognize these.
I think
guys.
it's designed after a dung beetle. I think that's where it gets from. You know what a dung beetle
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
Yeah, the ones that roll around poop.
Yeah,
as they're hot.
we've caught a few of them in Animal Crossing.
One of them poop big. Poop
Yeah, poop beetles. Oh, look at this painted track. Look at this. It's splashy. I like it. Wiggles, this is your official notification to join the race.
Thank you. I'm in the race.
Woo-hoo! Wiggles made it. Wild Whoopie. Would you like to join the race? Are you feeling toasty? I have lit a fire underneath your bum.
Them butt fires. Those are never good.
Did you have Mexican food? Did you have tacos? Did you have Taco Bell more specifically?
I had.
I just
Wendy's.
texted my coworker, see if she'll toss it when she gets.
Huh?
I texted my coworkers like, "Hey, can you toss it when you get in tomorrow?"
Oh, good.
He doesn't get in until after our manager, so we'll see.
Guys, exclamation play to join the track. Exclamation play. Dreams. Exclamation play. There you go, Dreams. He made it. Dreams, what are you drinking tonight?
What am I what?
What are you drinking?
Jack Daniels Coke. But I did start off on Copperburn.
I win. You did win. Jammy's putting in her hacks request right now. She's gonna win. Momo, are you gonna win?
Strawberry and pineapple is what
I wasn't in time.
Oh,
Ooh,
that
strawberry
sounds
and
like-
pineapple sounds delicious.
It's
It
actually
does.
not bad. It's like
It sounds like it tastes delicious, but it sounds like my stomach is gonna hate me after like the second one.
there is no question that it's kind of sickening. It's sweetly sickening. Like it's very tropical.
Oh, so like one's enough.
I'm
Wiggles, what are you
I
having?
don't go through this pack and find out that there's pear in it because they're getting chucked. No
I love this track. It reminds me of what is that game on Nintendo that on the Switch that has the is it
Mario
Splatoon?
Paint.
Mm-hmm.
Splatoon.
It reminds me of the kids program Art Attack. I don't know if you've ever had that in the States. But it's very blotchy, very art blotchy.
Momo, how are you tonight? I hope you're doing awesome. love Momo's bats. See, Momo has bats below her name.
Yeah.
She has little batty bats. Which means she downloaded the app.
Which app?
There's an app for this and you can purchase little add-ons. Or also while you're getting drops, you're earning coins if you're doing the drops thing. And you can get add-ons for the game via drops. There's an app for the game now too. I think if you look at the drops thing, I think it'll take you to it. I think it's just Marbles on Stream app. But you can totally earn drops and earn little add-ons, like for when you hit the finish line or you join the map, you know, join the race, or just throughout the race, you have the little bats and stuff. I don't think I have any add-ons to just joining. I have a heart when I join, but I don't have anything while I'm moving around in the race. Uh-oh. She's getting serious over here.
You know, just messaging Bex because her and I don't talk very much.
Oh, it's so good to see her here.
Yeah.
She misses you.
Mm-hmm. I love my Vixen.
Da-da-da-da. Too bad she lives so far away.
I know.
Uh-oh.
No, I don't want to.
Oh, I was gonna say, she picked up the moonshine, guys. I miss her too.
yeah.
I'm here.
Blue Juggle.
Love you, Ray.
Yeah.
Way more alcohol than I'm used to.
Yeah.
What is the proof? The 30?
35%.
Oh, it's a 70 proof. Yeah, that's not bad. That's good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not
Oh,
bad.
final results, Jim. Congratulations, GG. It's huge chunk moonshine. GG, Jamie. Congrats. The next map is Pristine. Pristine Rainbow Road. Join if you dare. Stupid fingers, hack my back one. My back one. Your hack one, okay. Cheat code 1234. That sounds more like a password. Oh. Michigan is giving out his passwords in chat.
Why did he leave?
I don't know. Come back, Michigan. You have been requested. Maybe he's getting food. I don't know.
Baby, come back.
Oh!
You
I
can
dropped
blame
the
it
mic.
all on me.
Rain laugh in the distance. Oh, she took you guys to the bathroom.
I did
with
take
her.
them with me.
She took you guys to the lady room. Oh,
Big
my-
old
What's up, man?
oh.
quick.
Bloody is
That's what I finally
having
got.
beer and
What
sake
did you finally get?
It.
and sushi.
It finally came in.
Tessie!
Oh, holy shit, dude.
And it's got the. It's got
Oh,
the quick
yeah.
code.
Well, that's cool. Nice, Danger Noodle.
I just don't have my shifter yet, which makes me sad. But it's coming in within the next few weeks.
Look at you and your fancy fucking gloves, too.
These are
You
fucking
know,
like $2 gloves
fancy.
from Walmart.
Oh, come
You
on.
have to have driving
There we go.
gloves when you're driving. I mean, fuck.
Oddly enough, it feels more comfortable on the wheels.
Rain,
along
you
the
did make
side
it.
of That
That's
amount of
okay.
thin material.
I did step away.
Yeah.
I didn't
Oh my
make
God,
it.
those-
in
Look to see if I made it.
This
Turtle, thank you so much for the sub with Prime. Much appreciated. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for the 52 months. I'm hyping chat.
Turtle.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Turtle. Much appreciated.
My tummy.
How are you this evening?
Good lord.
I don't even want to say what my longest subscription is.
Oh wow.
No,
I
it's
think-
B. It's,
I think on my stream it's like 75 or 78 or something months. It's like wow.
I didn't meet you until about a year and some ago, but
Right. So you can't have that. But I mean like other people, I'm like,
Mhm.
wow, that's a long time.
so for B, you know, Blackout, I'm.
Mhm.
I don't know.
It's outrageous. I can't believe I'm going to say this out loud.
How many?
I'm at 118 months. I'm
Oh,
2 months
that's so
short.
Fuck yeah.
cool. That's awesome support. No, that's cool. That's cool. Mona is a bad host. She gave
Oh no, no,
Lady Wayne Pepsi instead of Dr. Pepper.
no. I bought that on my own.
There are Dr. Peppers in my fridge.
And there's also
Mhm.
Baja Blast.
I also got her favorite like Cosmo Alani
Mm-hmm.
drink too. So
My second
And
favorite.
apple pie moonshine.
what's your favorite one?
If it's not the caramel apple one, it's actually the orange kiss now. 'cause
Okay,
it's not
orange
Mimosa
kiss.
anymore. They called it
Orange
kiss.
kiss is
The
good.
moonshine's your favorite. Don't lie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good. Mona is mean sometimes. I am mean.
No, she
sometimes.
doesn't. She definitely has Dr. Pepper in there, but I had Pepsi from my drive over, so I finished my Baja Blast from earlier today. So on to the
So-
Pepsi I go.
If you ever, if
That is
anybody here,
something.
if anybody here ever makes
They're
Jello shots,
snacks.
Baja Blast makes the best Jello shots.
Okay, so
Interesting.
I want to ask you guys something, right? You
Yeah.
have this thing over in the States where it's a bucket, right? And in this bucket has like, let's say, some kind of alcopops in it, and it's some kind of spirits in it, and it comes with its own ice. It's all in one fucking
Oh,
vat.
fishbowl. The fishbowl.
What the fuck
What?
is that, and where do I get it?
It's
Yeah,
a rum.
a
It's
fishbowl.
it's a rum fishbowl.
But it has
I'm a
like
fuck-
inside it, it'll have like maybe some sweets or something.
Sorry, I'm not an alcoholic. I don't know about this shit.
Hey, I'm not an alcoholic either.
A
But
lot of those are homemade. You
yeah,
No,
can't
it all
buy a
depends.
lot of those at a bar.
But no, I'm not mean.
dude,
a
we
bar, I
have
mean,
bars
like,
out
you
here
go
that
to, like, a-
specifically
you go to,
serve
like, a
fish
store,
balls.
You go to like a shop or something like that, and in that shop on the fucking drinks aisle, it's a fucking bowl, like a jug almost, right? And a plastic jug.
Okay, I might have
And
to
in it
click
is
the
fucking-
button.
it's got its ice,
Sorry,
it's got
guys.
its, like fruit or alcohol.
Ray's not keeping me in
drink,
check.
whatever it is, but it's also got spirits in it. It's also got like little sweets, and you fucking pour a whole lot in, and it's like a.
I don't even know what you're
Next
talking
station
about.
play, guys.
Oh, are you talking
Okay.
about like jungle juice?
Oh no, that shit
Dreams,
somebody pour life
rain, Thor, Wiggles. You guys,
I'm in.
exclamation play.
I did it.
There we go.
That fucking moonshine's kicking my ass.
I know, that's why I
Oh,
had to say
stop
everybody's
it.
name
Just
out
take
loud.
shots. Relax.
I am telling you, I can drink a 6-pack with no problem. But you get me in liquor, I'm fucking done.
And she ate.
I did.
That's
I
not
did
what
eat.
your shot glass says.
My stomach is very upset though.
Oh, this dude.
Yeah. Okay. 13 seconds, guys.
I think this is gonna be my last one.
Okay. Well, it's so cool to see you again, though.
Mhm.
Where's Lemon though?
She is laying down. I think she
Oh, really?
got the bad end of Taco Bell last night.
Oh,
Oh no! I'm so sad. Sorry to hear that. That's so sad.
But we finally got
Hate when that
all of the
happens.
things she ordered.
Oh,
Fuck yes.
the stream is like, I don't.
Not that it's like a fucking lot, but you know, you order one of those like those snack boxes or whatever. It comes with like 4
Mhm.
things. They
Mhm.
always leave one out.
This is what I'm gonna show you, just quite quickly. For
Dude,
the
my
channel.
Amazon.
Welcome, Cutting Quill. Welcome to the
Like,
stream.
What the fuck is this?
Turtle, I don't want to hear it, Turtle.
Where did you share it?
It's just
What the fuck is
just
what?
live stream it just quite quickly. This thing,
Yeah, that's like a.
but you can get it as like a bowl. Or
Oh,
like,
that okay. So those
Oh.
okay. So those
What the
are. It
fuck?
doesn't matter where it is. It's gas stations or liquor stores trying to get rid of old inventory, so they bag a whole bunch of shit together that may sound good together, and they sell it because they want to get rid of it quick.
But there's ones that's like a big fish bowl.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
are some. Yeah.
It's not just in a bag. It's like a plastic. Sorry, like a jug, like a plastic.
But
don't know how
that
to
stuff with the
explain
like the Red Bulls and the
People are just
Fagos and
like-
all that, those are like it's like
They can't handle the two of us being
It's
together, can they?
literally
Nope.
jungle juice in a
Too
cup.
much trouble.
So you're making your
No,
own
ain't no
jungle
trouble.
juice instead of having it in a big ass cooler. You're making it
Mhm.
in a pint glass.
Polecatch, guys.
No, it
You need a Gyarados in your collection.
drinking container.
Just saying. Michigan, you got first place, by the way. Come back, Michigan.
Kill kit.
Shit, I do have an Ultra Ball in there. Fuck yes.
Fuck if I know, but I've seen some.
Jamie!
Jamie, we have balls.
Like,
Jamie, we need more balls. You gotta buy some in the poke shop. Exclamation poke shop. Space poke ball. And like 5.
Alright, y'all. I will see y'all later.
Hey, buddy. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. If I don't see you.
Yeah,
alright,
love
we'll
you,
see Happy New Year,
bye.
pal.
Bye. What are you trying to say, Vix? What are you trying to say here? Rude. Oops, sorry.
rude.
I elbowed Rain.
That's rude.
I elbowed Rain. You called Gyarados. That was quick.
What the fuck?
You need more balls to catch this Pokemon, apparently. Apparently Rain has... No, apparently, yeah, Rain has all the balls. I mean... Although my cup says differently.
It does.
I'm just putting this feeler out here right now. If I end up going on this trip, that shit will become a daily occurrence. This fishbowl looking motherfucker.
Rain has... Okay.
I do have all the balls, 'cause guess what? I got 83
Just
Pokeballs.
walked over screaming at me.
Farted and walked away? Not Patches.
Your cat is complaining about the current
Oh
food
my God.
situation. By the
Farted
way,
and walked
exclamation
away,
play
that's
to get your
funny.
marble on the track. Exclamation play.
Actually, to be honest, that sounds like very Patches coded.
Dream, squiggles,
That is very
forgot.
Patches coded.
Rain.
I guess I can play.
Her name is now Rain.
Rain.
Bio.
Ryan.
It's me. Identify as the cat.
So, I was obviously up at my
Girl, it is.
My uncle's got a French bulldog, and it was lying down on the floor, and someone turned around and was like,
28 seconds. Don't get your booty burned. Desi got burned. I'm so sorry, Desi.
they're like, oh, you stinky bastard.
Fart? No. Play. Exclamation play. No farting. Car dealership is messaging me trying to get me to go buy a car.
It was just
Gross.
lit.
Yeah.
They're gonna give me one for free?
Great. I doubt that.
Damn. Look, if I can go from having no car payment to having no car payment, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'm at no car payment slash my new car is my computer.
That
So,
reminds me.
yeah.
I don't know if anybody, but any of you guys have the Mega Millions lottery.
Oh,
I haven't played it yet.
It's
what is
at
it up to?
1.2 billion. I never buy tickets. I bought 5
No,
tickets
it's
today.
out.
They're upstairs.
billion?
Yeah.
it's at 1.2 billion.
When's it roll?
The drawing is actually it already happened. I think it's at 9:30 my time.
Ah,
Mm.
well
I
dang
gotta
it, too
go
late.
check my tickets to see if I'm a gajillionaire.
He's a billionaire. Yep,
I hope so.
I've never
I'm calling it. You won.
Mm.
You won the jackpot.
in the UK
Bitches,
go
if
anywhere
I
in
win
France.
the fucking lottery, dude, we're all going on a fucking vacation that you never ever even
Fuck yeah.
imagine.
Mate,
Let's go.
I just want a small.
It was drawn at 11 p.m., so it was literally drawn 15 minutes ago.
Okay,
11
I'm gonna go-
o'clock?
Yeah, it's
I'm
already
gonna go
11
grab my
o'clock.
wallet.
I don't think you need to tell us out loud on stream if you won, though.
It's not on stream anyway.
Let's not do that. Wiggles and Vixen are down to the last two who are alive on the track. Everybody else fell off. Can I be weird? Stepchild that sneaks along.
Absolutely.
Talk to her.
Absolutely.
She has connections.
You certainly can, Vix. Feel like anywhere I go, you have to go to.
You're united by tattoos.
Mm-hmm. You and I will get some matching tattoos at some point too.
Okay, I did win it all.
Tattoo.
I know.
Because I
did
get
win it all
This is my
because I
one and
don't have
only
the ball.
one.
I do the Japanese onsen before I get a tattoo.
See, that's the nice thing about this one is because it's so small, I can actually cover it up pretty quickly. and
Yeah,
pretty
well, there are some that allow it now,
Yeah.
too, so you're okay. Skin sisters? Oh my god! Oh god, I just snorted! She made me snort! Oh, good night, Jamie. Thank you so much for hanging out and playing. I hope you have some amazing sleeps and a wonderful Saturday tomorrow, Jamie. Thank you for hanging out and playing. It's so good to see you. You're always pleasant, amazing, lovely. Guys, if you have not followed Jamie, please do so. She is the sweetest, kindest, most amazing streamer I know. You will not be disappointed.
Now we have a hashtag.
She also does karaoke streams. She is awesome. She does karaoke streams.
Still on Facebook or not?
Okay, we are on the last one of this one. Infernal Madness. GG though. Skin Sisters hashtag? Oh my god. I don't even know the meaning behind that, and it just sounds wrong.
Yeah, see? Matching.
Yeah.
It's not my cover letter or my cover thing anymore. That one is.
Oh, yeah, I love the little picture book.
No, isn't it cute? I took that in high school.
I don't know, but it sounds horrible. Exclamation play, guys. Get
Sounds
horrible on the chat. Exclamation
terrifying,
play.
Vix.
Hurry, hurry, hurry. Get in. Dreams! Exclamation play.
Vix, we've been friends for almost 10 years, and you're asking me if
Okay.
we're friends on Facebook.
Yeah, you are. Wiggles is in too.
I'm in.
Good night, Jamie.
Sounds like nobody won.
You got a new account?
What the heck? How did we not win?
But you literally posted a thing 14 hours ago on Facebook. So, yes, we're friends on Facebook.
What is she drinking? Because we're having moonshine. I don't know what her excuse is. Just kidding.
She's a natural blonde like you are.
Oh, that's a good
Her
one.
excuse.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Apparently she has multiples.
She does, because I'm pretty sure I'm still friends with her on your old account, too. I know.
It's acceptable.
Yeah. Yeah, see, I have the current one, and then the one that doesn't exist anymore.
Oh.
Hmm. I guess I can unfriend that one. Are we friends? No, I'll unfriend you on that one.
Ladies in the lead, don't tell her.
Right.
No, now it's Aiden. You had to fucking talk to him.
No, still in the lead.
Now it changed back.
Oh,
See?
now Vix is in the
You
lead.
have to talk shit over here.
I didn't know nothing.
If ever I'm in the
I know
lead, it
nothing.
lasts for about 3 seconds and then it's done.
Sorry,
That sounds about right.
Story of my life.
I know you did not just send me a fucking Viva La Dirt. When did you send
He just confessed. He made a
Oh,
confession tonight.
Yeah.
Oh,
The live on
that was
stream.
from forever ago. Hey.
Aiden, you can't say shit like that out loud, you know?
I know.
Don't get
I'm
me
sorry. I'm sorry. My bad.
No, you're not.
I'm terrible.
Don't even lie. Don't even lie.
I blame the moonshine.
Yeah. What you are is a terrible liar. Is what that is.
What? I mean, I wouldn't know. So
There is that. There is
don't
that.
know. I'm like,
I mean, he kind of confessed it. We kind of all know, don't we?
yeah, I guess. Rain, I may leave.
I'm pretty sure I follow you on Instagram.
All right, come
too.
on, Vix. We're
And
coming down
friends
to the
on
win.
Discord. I think that's close enough.
You and Lady Rain, who will go through the hole first?
It'll be me.
Vix made it. Then Lady
You
Rain.
bitch. Vix would be quicker to the hole.
All right, now we're down to Wheels made it in as well. Bloody's on his way, and so is Dreams.
I gotta say though, I'm happy that you're back on.
Thanks.
I'm glad.
Thank
that
you,
you're
thank
getting
you.
Normality back.
It feels good to be back. It really does.
I've definitely missed your streams. I'm sure we all can say that, but
I miss humaning. I miss hanging out with people and being around because I just have been so busy too, and it's nice to take 5 again.
Seems like norm. Bit of
Yeah.
normality.
Yeah, some normalcy. I need some normalcy in my life right now. It's been over 2 months of chaos, so
it's so crazy. I
like
still
10
remember
weeks
that
of
when you were-
chaos.
You were like, yeah, no, I'm pretty safe. There's nothing. I'm in a good spot. Nothing's gonna happen. And then we get the, oh yeah, I have a tree inside my house.
So we're going
yeah.
to it's gonna be regular. Yes, I should be on Fridays and Sundays for sure. Those are the goals right now. Jamie got 3rd place in the podium as she ran away. 2nd place goes to Vix. Woohoo! Who the heck is first? It better not be me. I'm not allowed.
Waggles.
He called it. GG Wiggles. You got 1st place. Congrats.
All right.
All right. Are we doing one more round?
We can definitely do one more round.
I ain't
Okay.
going nowhere.
Okay, let's do one more round. One more round of Grand Prix.
I finished work and slept till 10 p.m. I'm good.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish I could have. I started work at 10 a.m.
I have my last Christmas gathering tomorrow, and it's at like 4 p.m.
Oh,
So I'm good. Got nothing.
Michigan got burned this time. Simply Polka. Alright, guys, exclamation play. Get your marble on the track. You're lurking and listening, let's roll. Yes, what she said.
Mm-hmm.
We play some kind of community night game on Fridays. And Sundays is up in the air.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say that, but then I realized that you were doing marbles, and I was like, fuck, I wish it was golf.
I
Yeah,
love
people
both.
put in the request for marbles, so we did marbles first. So next week we can do golf.
I'm kind of grateful they did marbles because I don't have golf with me.
It would be harder for her this week to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be harder for her this week to do golf.
I don't,
Turn
Just
on!
send her. Give her another shot and send her home. She'll be fine.
Oh god.
Exclamation plate. No, she cannot drive.
Driving that.
I will
I was
take her
already
keys.
terrified and singing myself here, alright? I literally had to like soothe myself on the way here because I had no connection on Discord.
I would have to, like, give her another shot, throw her over my shoulder, and throw her in bed. She's not allowed to leave.
No, I can't leave. She's stuck with me for 2 days.
That's good if you guys
Oh,
get
Toro
good.
map? Totoro?
Yeah.
Totoro map? What is
I
she?
didn't.
Come on.
Yeah. I didn't get to go see my family this week, so I decided I was gonna visit Mona instead.
Yeah, have family. It works.
Where's
Totoro.
Elvis' sister?
She brought me like so many cookies. I don't know what I'm gonna do with myself.
So many cookies.
She probably brought me like probably like 5 dozen cookies.
Yeah, that's amazing.
You have to think. I had 2 other things of that, right?
Yeah.
Because I had a full one of the
Did you
ginger
like
snaps.
cookies for like weeks or like 3
I
days
made 'em
for
straight.
work?
But you remember, I worked.
How
with
long
Fran-
did it take to cook that many?
It only took a few hours. But you have to think. I was used to cooking for 60 people because that's how many people we had at Sprouts. Now I'm at Restaurant Depot and we have less than 20 people. So I didn't need to make that many.
She made a lot.
I
of
made way too
cookies.
many.
My wife's
I
been a
had
cookie cake, too,
3
like,
foil containers full of them.
They're
She
boxes
brought
of
like
boxes. That's awesome.
I've been making cookies like for the last 2 weeks, and I was like, I need to make
what's
some
your
more
favorite?
cookies.
So like, what are you making? Like, what kind?
I make a basic sugar cookie with sprinkles. Then I make a double chocolate macadamia. Then I make a date nut cookie, which has dates and chopped pecans in it. Then I made cranberry orange oatmeal cookies. What else did I make? Peanut butter cookies. Peanut butter. I made 5 different kinds.
That must be a thing this year because my wife made those cranberry orange cookies.
Oh no.
Yeah.
I've never had a macaroon. Never had a
Oh,
macaroon.
macadamia or macaroon?
No, macaroon. Those are so specialty. You can get those normally from like
Yeah.
a bakery. Those are
It's
so
like a
difficult.
fancy French pastry shop or the freezer section of the grocery
I
store.
just put it in the little text chat in Discord, but that's how many cookies I made. I made so
Nice.
many
How many?
fucking cookies.
They look amazing too. Good job. That's so.
They
cool.
do. They are fucking amazing.
That's
Because that's the container I
Oh,
brought
now you
you.
got this guy.
Those 2 are the ones I took to work.
Vix just got first place, by the way.
Fucking cheating.
And now beaming out into space, followed by Cat and Dreams. And Wheels is trying to make his way to the finish line, and he does. Now you're on to Momo, who is trying to make her way to the finish line.
And Vix still won. What the fuck?
Yay! Everybody finished,
Zach?
though.
Kiddo's feeling better. Kiddo feeling better.
Hi, welcome!
Hi, Zach.
Oi, oi.
You can't hear people join, can you?
No.
Baby, right?
But I'm in the same space as Mono.
No!
That
I
lady to your house, to your home?
Face profile.
Not at home today.
Let's see. Exclamation play, guys! Exclamation play to get your marble on the track.
Oh, I didn't even realize there's a Poke Catch.
Yep, I call it polygraph.
Polygraph.
Exclamation play to get your marble on the track. We are in Gardens Down Wonder.
Zach, did I
What
tell
the
you that I
heck?
ordered my golf watch?
You did. It's not gonna help you.
Yes, it can.
I did that for Discord peeps.
Believe. It tells me stats. Just need to read numbers.
Rain is dying over here.
Yeah.
Zach, thank you for playing.
Golf watch. It's
Right.
just gonna say 80.
Well,
Pokemon community games get singed.
it tells me numbers.
But you can't read.
I'm working on it.
You can't even read.
Damn, Zach.
Keep
I'm
up.
working on it.
Keep up, Anonymous.
Ooh.
Hip hop up anonymous.
What? Oh, I forgot to change ears. It's been a while.
Where is it?
We can mark off. Oh, we were on reindeer antlers and forgot.
Track my orders.
Oh, jeez.
Where did my feedback?
I blame the moonshine. I was doing good about changing my ears every 15 minutes to whatever color people requested.
Oh, that's very festive.
What?
Here you go, bud. Just to shits and giggles.
Am I letting? Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but it's UK.
Oh, shit.
Comes
I
with
can't-
the trackers at the top of the golf club as well. Let's go.
Do it.
No, because I can't pull her up. So I'm gonna send it to myself
Oh.
and then send it to her. What?
And you can get a real nice.
Oh my God! What the
laser
hell?
rangefinder for $200.
What the fuck happened?
Laser rangefinder.
Oh no! But something's weird. Okay, we're not. We can't play apparently.
What the hell you need to watch for then?
The biggest problem is knowing the yardages of my clubs. To be honest.
What? Are you
And
talking
this-
about whack fuck?
Yeah.
Oh, hi, Jeff. We're on.
Yeah.
People join.
My yardages of the clubs, and this does that. Keeps track of it all. And tells you.
What? Who said my name and asked me what?
So the noise is coming from Mono, but it's not Mono.
Oh, lady, what the heck are you doing?
Moan. Oh.
That was Mono.
In Zach's case, it's more like, oh no.
I'm
Oh,
not
no,
gonna.
no.
I'm
Oh,
not
no.
gonna. I'm not gonna dox you right now, lady, but I know your first name, and I didn't say it.
We all know
What
her
do you do
first
with
name.
anything?
It's
Where's
Ryan.
the side column?
Yeah, it's
What?
Ryan.
Uh,
Oh
It's-
yeah.
So you see the little people up there? Yeah.
There it is.
You can send it to
Vix
Vixen
Ryan,
there.
because I'm lying.
Why am I in last place?
Rain. It's above.
Good.
Yeah, she's online.
You're already
There you go.
gone. You already been kicked.
Oh yeah, you out. To be
What the
fair,
heck?
I'm
You can
always
DM her
in
from
last
there.
place.
There you
Are
go.
you guys?
Doing surprisingly well.
Wait, are you guys playing golf?
Why is it not working? Because I'm live.
Marble.
Oh shit.
So, go back. I think it's because of the settings you have. Go back to the little arrow where Kimono
There's still
says.
there's still some form
Oh, that
of
works too.
denomination of balls, Jeffron, so
Yeah.
Right. She's under my
Pretty
mic.
sure you have two, just like I do.
You know you can. Here.
Ta-da! Yeah, I've got 3.
There.
Why is it already there? Today.
Wait, what do you
I
mean?
just sent it.
Oh, right. That was like, you're so confusing.
Go back to our girls only club.
Okay.
Oh my god.
When you
all
click
are
on it-
special.
When you click on a person's name,
Mm-hmm.
you see how it pops up. You can message them from there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Not me just teaching Mono how to do things.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on here. I'm just looking.
Oh my god, I see you both now. I didn't realize you were streaming. I love
Yeah.
that you
Yes, we are live.
Yeah, it's so much fun.
Oh my god, what a beautiful sight.
I don't know about that. She's nuts.
give
There
it
goes
20
my
minutes.
main-
Give it 20 minutes, that
Huh?
moonshine will kick in.
there goes my main-
Oh no, it's been kicked
Oh,
out.
it's already kicked in, my dude. We're 2 shots in. I'm
Wiggles
fucking
redeemed
done.
celebration.
My biceps are not happy.
Okay, so
You'll be fine.
I don't even know where that thing
I
is.
don't think the wheel's entirely liking it either. Ugh.
There it is. There, we'll just wear both at the same time. That looks so dumb.
Yes.
No
big
problem.
fan.
You happy, Bio? Desi got first place though, by the way. GG.
I didn't even get in. That's weird.
Yep. We're just waiting on dreams now.
Told you.
That's accurate
I
enough.
always wait till the end. I wait till
There he
everybody
goes.
else
Congrats, Jesse.
Get there first.
Desi. Joffrey. You gotta wait until we start the next race, man. A little early. Jeffron.
Yeah, I know.
Alright, now you can do it. Now you can do it. Exclamation play to join the race, guys. Exclamation play.
I just put a link in there. Can we take that link out?
Poor Zach got burnt.
I didn't mean that link.
Why is my butt getting burned?
Just fuck
Because
you.
you're special.
I went and said something to someone and I forgot that link was. Can we take that out?
What?
Lady.
What?
That I put a link in the chat. I didn't mean to send that link. I sent it to someone else.
What link?
It didn't show
Where?
up.
It got
Oh.
deleted.
In Discord or on Twitch?
Twitch side chat.
It
Oh,
didn't-
it doesn't. It doesn't
didn't
go
show
through
up.
because links aren't allowed on Twitch
Yeah,
anyway.
it didn't show up because it's not allowed. You're good.
I can see it.
Can you? Because I can't even see it.
What's not
I
allowed?
have
Links in Twitch.
what's it called?
Wiggles, please help.
I,
What?
I, I can
Trying to
I
kill
can
me.
see all deleted comments and stuff.
Let's go. Vix is in the lead. Just kicking your butt.
That sounds about right.
You didn't make it in again.
No, I didn't.
Guy.
It's all these idiots making me do other shit.
She said you're in
Hey,
the
no,
room with me and
that's
she
not
can't
very
make it in. Oh.
Wait,
No, I keep chatting. Vix.
lady, who's the idiots?
Myself.
Vix.
Shit.
Her best
Me.
friend.
You know, me and my best friend. It's fine.
Oh, goody. What emote is that?
I'm not gonna keep playing this game right now.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
little-
cute little
thing.
hamster.
If you have 7 TV, you can see everything.
Interesting ADHD gremlin.
I have a better Twitch TV, which allows me to see everything too.
Vix fell off.
But
She's just a girl.
She just.
because you're a mod, so you have, right?
No, I have it set to look at things. So like if messages are deleted, I have settings.
So
that
do
allow me to see
I,
it.
but it doesn't work apparently.
No, because you don't have better Twitch TV installed.
Yeah, I do.
It doesn't show up there.
I know. It's dumb. But it shows up if I go to the channel. If I'm on my dashboard, I can't see it usually.
No. So like my Chrome has better Twitch TV, literally right here,
Yeah.
because it shows right there. That's how I
Yeah.
know I have it.
Well, my other computer had it.
It looks.
still
I
didn't
like.
show
I can
up.
see that you have
See?
finger faces,
Yeah.
but you don't have it. Oh, you need to authorize it again. And then
Yeah.
fix your settings.
Okay,
Because
the
I-
last
because I've
thing
been
I want to do is create an
MIA.
argument between both of you. That,
No,
We're angry. Just
we're
kidding.
definitely gonna argue with each other.
See, I have Franker face too, but
I want you to ram her with your
What?
reindeer horn.
What?
With the reindeer. With the reindeer
with
horn.
my horns.
You have to listen to the entire conversation. I apologize.
I
for the
mean-
pause.
I was gonna say the pause kind of fucked you there.
No fault.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Well, I'll sit
Wait.
there.
the
Wait,
timing
no,
of that was
Joffrey.
not really well.
Do you know what's fucked up? I looked at your screen that had the mouse on it, and I thought it was my mouse. I was like, how come this is moving? Where's my hand going? It's not moving.
You are the kind of person that would be blessed with that awfulness.
This is so funny looking. I love it. Look at these two dudes on the map.
Oh yeah.
The Monopoly guy.
They look like
Look at this guy, Barry.
The Monopoly guy. Ow.
oh,
The timer has been started! Exclamation play, Lady Rain.
I'm working on it. Alright, I'm working on it. Getting in this time.
Vix can multitask.
You know what?
Do you need another shot?
No,
I was gonna say, I think she needs another shot. She needs another shot. I think that's.
no, if I have another shot. I'm going to bed. Like,
Why
if you guys want me to be
not
around,
playing frickin' golf
because I can't play.
Yeah, golf's next week.
next week?
I can't play
All
golf.
right,
Yeah, Friday.
I'm setting that on my schedule.
Do it.
I'll book work off.
Next Friday, we'll do
I
golf.
work next Friday. I'm pretty sure I'm closed, but that doesn't matter. I'll still be here.
You know, I'll start late anyways.
I was gonna say, the latest I'll get off is 6:30. So
Hashtag husband
Yeah, I
goals. Oh,
yeah, I'll be home.
do
by the
it.
time
What's she
stream
talking about?
starts.
Hashtag husband goals. Do it.
I have no idea. Probably me.
Is she typing in the right chat?
I have no idea. I guarantee you she's probably the sober one.
I know. We're terrible.
Or shots.
Shots?
Oh, shots.
Shots
Shots
fired.
fired.
No.
Shots fired.
Oh, shot.
No.
Mm-hmm.
I will literally have to go to bed if we have another shot.
Yeah. We'll be out. Mm.
Fucking hell.
I think ladies.
Oh, the
ears go
statues.
A little bit longer if she.
Oh, the statues. You know, it's spelled this way. That's how you spell
Joffrey's
statues.
in the lead. was in the lead.
What do you Mono, I have to ask you a question.
Yeah,
Why do you call me Joffrey?
because that's what your chat name is.
No, it's Jaffrey.
Jaffrey.
Yeah. It's been Jaffrey this entire time. Joffrey's with an O.
Sometimes an A can make an
Yeah.
aw.
True.
Yeah.
But Mono is also Mono, and as soon as she says it one way, it basically
It's
sticks
stuck.
that way.
It's stuck in my brain.
Viv, my name is Jaffrey.
Don't own that ball.
Frig off.
His name Jeff.
The wild
his name is not
guard
Jeff,
appears.
that's
Don't
Jeff.
catch. I'm out
That's
of
a completely
football.
different person. Jeff is another mod here. Jaffron is the
I
giraffe.
can't do it. It can't catch
Who's
any
below me?
Pokemon.
To put
In
it
Discord
into
anyway.
Because I'm
perspective,
out.
My grandmother's maiden name was Jaffrey. So her
Mhm.
name was Ruthie Ann Jaffrey, and therefore my parents named me after her,
That's cool.
Jaffrey.
Oh, this is bad.
Just so
Alright,
you can hear
guys.
it, my name is Jaffrey.
Yeah, but if you say it with a posh British accent, it's Joffrey.
Yo,
Jaw?
this is true.
But
I'm now British.
I'm not fucking British. So frig off.
Never mind,
British
British.
No!
I was gonna say kinda are. I know.
I
British.
do live in.
Good
British
God.
Holy
Columbia,
crap, spot the team.
Yeah, what's on your money?
Would you
Your
like
money.
to continue?
I
this
can't do
argument
better,
with you,
but that was
Jaffron,
terrible.
or-
Zachary, I would not, because you
Ugh.
can go.
Spell
Is
it.
Zach Harry?
You can go eat
Spell
some
it.
more meat in
He's
Texas.
not
Harry says
sorry.
it. My brother's name is Zach, and when my dad calls him,
If somebody
the
called me
phone literally
Zachary,
called
that would just be silly.
Zach Harry.
Well,
Yeah,
It literally says Zach
there you
Harry.
go, right?
Zachary. To be
Zachary.
fair, that's how Athena.
Weigels.
Weigel.
Weigels. It's an I. Shoot with an I. Weigels. Sorry.
I had somebody call me Widgels one time.
Widgels.
Widgels.
Widget.
How can we mess with Dreams' name?
Well,
You can't mess up.
Dreamwather.
Just call him Gaiden.
Oh,
Dreamwather.
So rude.
wow.
Oh, last leg of the race. Let's go. Classic
Pinky has to be able to
nostalgic
say it like
adventure.
that. Oh my god.
Your pinky has to be out. Oh yeah, I missed the
Whoa.
pinky.
Mm.
Whoa,
Dang it.
okay. So just because I won, you're gonna call me that now?
Weigels.
You said the Gaiden thing, and I was like, are you positive of that? 'Cause it's like,
No, I would never.
Exclamation
call
blade
you-
to join the race,
No.
guys! Exclamation blade!
I would never call you that. I'm just.
No,
saying,
no one would actually call you guys that.
People call me Joffrey. Jeffrey all the time.
Let's see.
I
Well,
just want
yes!
to correct-
Let's go! Exclamation blade! Exclamation
Hold
blade!
on. Was that little tiny
Oh.
hat come?
I forgot to do this earlier.
Was the little tiny Santa hat come with the antlers, or is that a
No.
separate
No, they did two redeems, so I just combined them.
event? No, I love it.
Yes.
Make
No,
the
I'm
other
on to
one
the
right.
next one, though. I have so many to do.
Make her wear some.
No.
That way you can get.
Oh.
You already did the other three that are in here.
No, these are new ones. Again.
Alright.
Repeat. But yes, there we go.
You had already done the three that were in there. So.
What were they? Purple, black, and
Purple,
rainbow.
black, and
right?
rainbow, yeah.
Black. And then.
So, lady,
Yeah. Technically, I'm wearing the black ones.
just out of curiosity, because I know that Mono,
And then rainbow.
it's a new place. So, do you have like a place to sleep, like a bed?
Oh, her and I are sharing a bed like usual.
Oh, nice. So you're like,
No, she's actually sleeping in a tent on my room.
TMI. TMI.
Yeah.
You know, we're just casually sleeping together.
Well, to be fair, she was the first one to make jokes about it. Like none of us made jokes about it. She was the first one to make it a point.
I wasn't here earlier.
Yeah, you're okay.
What?
I was asking about where I was sleeping.
Oh yeah, I said, am I okay? I'm
In
like,
the
yeah,
van
I'm
down
okay.
by the river. In the van down by the river.
Oh, I forgot that it controls your ability to hear too.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I could hear him.
I had to let my
Terrible.
wheel go.
Oh, there's so many.
Pillow fight!
What's that?
I had to let my wheel go.
I mean, we'll probably the pillow fight is the giant body pillow so she doesn't maul me in my sleep.
No, it's so I don't hog the bed for you.
Exactly, same thing.
That's why my husband and I have a fucking king size
be
bed because I take up the bed.
I'm not gonna lie, seeing you two together is freaking amazing. Dude,
Minus the
It's
3
chaos.
years.
We get into so much trouble.
Minus the 3
my
sets of
favorite
years.
people that I love.
Oh god, I hit buttons.
I love it.
Oh, well, thank
yeah.
you.
But if we ever get Lemon or Artist or Vix in the same room, we're screwed. It's gonna be even worse.
Yup. We're gonna record it.
Like Vix and I were together for a weekend at one point, and it was
The
absolute
world
chaos.
would end. I believe it.
Yeah, getting all of us together would definitely be
I believe
a
it.
problem.
Alright guys, you gotta step up your game because this is it.
Nightmare.
This is the end of the Grand Prix, man.
I win.
This is it.
I don't know what
And then me and Rain are gonna
give up. I win.
crash.
I win.
Then we're gonna crash. We're gonna have a shot and
I-
crash.
I
Just
won.
No, we're not having another shot. We're going to bed right after this. You were not even at your full form. I think you were still feeling pretty crappy. It was 3 years ago.
Congrats, let's go. Let's drum roll. Oh, if I click the right thing.
I
Switch.
played,
I think
what,
Dra- I think
3
Jeffrey won.
games and I won twice.
Drum roll.
No.
GG Wiggles.
Oh, heart kitty.
Second place.
Drop
Woo, drop wrong.
I'll win
Win.
again.
And Desi.
Congratulations, Desi! I remember the night I streamed marbles and Desi won like every Grand Prix.
I got first place.
Every.
twice.
Definitely, because it's rigged.
It is rigged. It's based on points.
I was not involved.
Lady Rain turned on their hacks a little late. Yes, 100%.
So can I get
Let's
a
see.
high five?
What did I
Can I
hit?
get a high five?
There we go.
for getting second?
Oh, I saw that.
You can get that.
No.
I saw that.
Yeah, so did stream.
Oh, jeez.
It's fine.
Like I said
Yes.
earlier, seeing you two beside each other makes me so happy. Like,
It's absolute chaos.
Yeah, and my floor looks like chaos, full of tears and such.
two
It really
friends, two really good friends beside each other.
Wasn't even that bad.
Like I know the whole backstory.
What? Not even 30 minutes ago.
My floor threw up.
Did you just make a mess?
There's ears
He
everywhere.
has a huge mess over there. Let me see if I can.
I don't know if you can see it. or not.
You don't
I don't know if you can see it.
You guys can see
I don't know if you
it.
can see it. but
Stream couldn't see it, but you guys couldn't Discord.
There's a pile.
It's a mess.
Wait, you gotta show me again. I didn't see.
Oh god. Oh, we're taking the.
Yeah, show me. Please.
There we go. Stream can see the chaos.
This is what happens when I can't find what I'm looking for. This.
Yeah, he's gotta look at stream.
It's not that bad.
No, it's not. It's really not that bad at all.
I know, it's messed up now.
There you go.
There we go. Thank you.
It's even
maybe
better like
right.
when if you just leave it there and then you come back to it tomorrow morning and you're like, what the
Be
fuck
like, what the
is
hell?
this? What happened?
What the hell happened?
Yeah.
What the
Lady, can
I'm drunk.
Wants to say something.
I was gonna say,
What?
Lady or Kimono, can
Welcome back.
Bugs get an invite?
Yeah.
Because I can't.
You have to send it. We can't
I
send
thought
it.
he was already in here.
No.
You can copy and paste from the welcome as well.
I can't.
Go ahead.
No.
Guess what?
Hey, there you go. Invited.
There, we already have it copied and pasted. We had to send it to Vix.
Alright, guys. But that's it for stream tonight. Thank you guys so much for hanging out.
Oh, fuck.
And that's what.
You sure you might want to just drink the rest of that.
No, wait. I will not wake up. Anyway, thank you guys for being here. Thank you for hanging out. The wonderful Lady Rain, special guest. I'm sure she'll be back again sometime. But yeah,
Nice.
thank you guys. It's so good to see you
Less than
all.
2 hours away. It's great.
Back.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Alright.
No Discord.
You
Yeah,
guys.
Discord
Are y'all ready?
Yeah.
But
There we go.
okay, all right. Good night, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you all. You guys are wonderful, amazing, beautiful humans. And I will see you next time. Glad to see you, normality. Yes, I'm so glad. We're gonna have not just normalcy, but we're gonna have new and improved awesomeness.
And
So
also
stay tuned.
chaos when I show up.
Definitely chaos.
Good night, guys.
Bye. Good night.